Chapter 76 Quirrell's Box. After tidying up his wizard robes, Jerry pretended to have just walked out of the common room, and walked towards the stairs. Walking around the corner, the situation on the other side of the stairs also fell into his eyes. At this moment, the troll was standing at the stairs, holding a big stick in his left hand, and Professor Quirrell's ankle in his right hand, like holding a toy, smashing left and right on the ground. This scene made Jerry think of how similar it was to the Green Titan holding Loki in the first episode of Avengers. He's so miserable. Seeing Professor Quirrell's face covered in blood and his eyes blurred, Jerry couldn't help but mourn for him for 2 seconds. On the stairs opposite the troll, Hermione fell to the ground in fright, screaming and backing away in terror. Apparently, the troll and Professor Quirrell with his face covered in blood, kind of freaked her out. In the final analysis, although Hermione is a top student with a wealth of theoretical knowledge, she is still a little girl with no actual combat experience and no strong combat talent. In a sudden and dangerous situation like today, she is not as effective as Harry and Ron. Hermione, what's going on here? How did Professor Quirrell get caught by a troll? With a surprised expression on my face that I don't know anything, Jerry rushed to the stairs and asked Hermione loudly. Seeing Jerry appear, Hermione calmed down a bit. I don't know, I just drank too much juice and wanted to go to the bathroom in the basement, and that's what I saw. Hey? Isn't there a toilet on the first floor? Why go to the basement to use the toilet? Jerry was also a little speechless, but he quickly took out his wand and shouted, I'll hold him back first. You go to the auditorium and call the professors to come over. In fact, he didn't know that going to the bathroom was just an excuse for Hermione. She just didn't see Jerry on the long table in Slytherin during the dinner party, and she was worried that something happened to him, so she wanted to go down to the basement to have a look. But I didn't expect that just halfway down the stairs, I saw the cruel scene of the troll below carrying Professor Quirrell with blood on his face. All right, be careful, I'm going to call the professor and the others over. Hermione hurriedly stood up and went upstairs, rushing towards the auditorium. And at this moment, in Professor Quirrell's wizard robe, which was being carried upside down by the troll, a small box the size of a palm suddenly fell to the ground with a click. Jerry's eyes lit up when he saw the box. Damned! With a finger of the wand in his hand, a blue magic light shot straight at the giant monster. A giant monster, a magical animal with a height of about 4 meters, a weight of 1 ton, and only boogers in its brain, is classified as XXXX in the textbook Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Jerry, who has experience in fighting more powerful abominations, is certainly not afraid of trolls, and knows their weaknesses. After a sleeping spell temporarily stunned the troll, Jerry stepped forward and grabbed Professor Quirrell, who had fallen from the troll's hand, and pretended to be unintentional, kicking the box that fell on the ground, causing him to flew directly into the abandoned classroom next to the stairs. Holding the wizard robe of the dying Professor Quirrell, instead of attacking the troll, he fled down the stairs to the first floor. Professor Quirrell was dragged upstairs by Jerry, the back of his head BG on the stairs. In about 7 or 8 seconds, the troll woke up and was about to go up the stairs with a big stick, but he put a stun spell on him again. Dragging Professor Quirrell to the first floor, Jerry also saw Professor Snape, Professor McGonagall, and the school doctor Mrs. Pomfrey who had rushed over. It turned out that just when Hermione rushed into the auditorium, she yelled out that a troll appeared in the basement, that Professor Quirrell was stunned and fell into the troll's hands, and that Jerry was trying to save Professor Quirrell from the troll's hands. Dumbledore immediately dispatched Professor Snape, Professor McGonagall, and the school doctor Pomfrey. Mr. Carmen, are you all right? McGonagall looked at Jerry nervously. Although Jerry is not a Gryffindor, Professor McGonagall attaches equal importance to the safety of every little wizard. I'm fine, but I'm afraid Professor Quirrell is not well, and the troll is still on the first floor, and my sleeping curse probably won't stop him for a few seconds. Jerry pointed to Quirrell whose face was covered in blood on the ground. Snape glanced at Quirrell with some doubts, and then told Jerry in a slightly appreciative tone, Jerry, you are very good. Follow Professor McGonagall back to the auditorium first, and I will go down and deal with that giant monster. Professor Quirrell to me, I will take him to treatment. At this time, Mrs. Pomfrey waved her wand, and Professor Quirrell's body followed her to the school infirmary under the effect of her moving spell. The moving spell is similar to the floating spell, except that it can not only make objects float, but also move with the wizard's thoughts under the control of the wizard's wand. Of course, unlike the levitating spell, which can be ignored after it is cast, the moving spell must continuously release its magic power, and it cannot be too far away from the wizard, otherwise it will be impossible to control it. Mr. Carmen, why are you alone in the basement? On the way back to the auditorium, Professor McGonagall asked with some doubts. For this question, Jerry is also well prepared. I was so engrossed in reading in the common room that I missed the start of the dinner party by the time I realized it. He had been reading in the common room this afternoon, where many little Slytherin wizards could sit, and just before the dinner party, he ran into Daphne and Pansy. McGonagall nodded. She wasn't suspicious, just curious. Mr. Carmen, you performed very well just now. If you hadn't bravely held back the troll, Miss Granger and Professor Quirrell would be in danger. I'll give Slytherin 10 points for your bravery. In fact, Professor McGonagall has always been impressed with Jerry, a little wizard. From the very beginning when she saw Jerry bravely stand up for the bullied and weak in the orphanage, she felt that Jerry was very suitable for Gryffindor. For the most important quality of a Gryffindor is bravery. Unfortunately, I didn't expect Jerry to be directly assigned to Slytherin by the Sorting Hat at the sorting ceremony. Thank you, Professor McGonagall. Jerry responded with a smile. Although Snape treated him very well, he had to admit that Professor McGonagall was indeed a model among the entire Hogwarts professors in terms of fairness and justice. Call. Following Professor McGonagall into the auditorium, except for the little wizard of Slytherin and Hermione, as well as Flitwick, the Dean of Law Wenquilo, and Sprout, the Dean of Hufflepuff, there was no Dumbledore in the auditorium. Jerry also breathed a sigh of relief. Presumably, the young wizards from other colleges should have returned to the dormitory under the leadership of the prefects, and Dumbledore most likely went to check his Philosopher's Stone. Although there was a little accident in this plan, the result is still good. The only loophole is probably Dumbledore's legilimency. If Dumbledore activates legilimency on him, it will be very troublesome. Although, he thinks that possibility is not very great. End of this chapter. Chapter 77. The space in the box during the return period. As long as Jerry has no classes, he will basically spend time in the library. After rummaging through many magic books, he finally saw the relevant introduction in a book about legilimency and legilimency mantra. In fact, as a relatively advanced and dangerous spell, legilimency does not exist in the 7-year teaching textbooks of Hogwarts. Even in the school library, there are only relevant introductions, but no specific learning methods. Of course, it might be in the restricted area, but he hasn't been there, and he doesn't know. In this book about legilimency practitioners and legilimency mantras, he learned that legilimency is divided into 2 types, legilimency practitioners and legilimency mantras. Legilimency is a wizard born with the ability of legilimency, that is, they don't need to learn, they can read other people's minds by birth. It's just that this kind of natural legilimency seems to be not easy to control because of its strong mental power. If there are too many people nearby, it will be very painful. Jerry thinks it should be like the American wizard named Queenie Goldstein in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The legilimency mantra is a spell that any wizard can learn, specially researched and invented by the legilimency practitioners a long time ago by studying their own legilimency ability. Just look into the other person's eyes and chant the mantra of legilimency, and you can read the thoughts in the other person's mind at this time, and even read the other person's memory along the way. And a wizard who has practiced legilimency and chanting to an extremely advanced level is also called a master of legilimency. Like Dumbledore, Voldemort, and Snape. They don't need spells, as long as they look at you, they can immediately know what's on your mind. If you want to completely fight against this kind of legilimency, you must learn the opposite occlumency. Or, you can also choose not to make eye contact with him, and focus your thoughts on other things, so that the other party cannot successfully invade the memory, but the specific effect of this is not clearly stated in the book. However, Jerry thinks there should still be some effect. Otherwise, wouldn't Dumbledore understand all of Voldemort's sins at school with a single glance? Jerry, are you okay? Hermione watched Jerry return safely with Professor McGonagall, and immediately ran up excitedly and hugged him. The scene just now was too scary, and she finally felt relieved when she saw that her best friend was not injured. Now all the Gryffindors followed the prefect back to the common room, only she stayed alone because she was worried about Jerry's safety. Originally, this was not allowed, but Hermione was the messenger and also an eyewitness, and she would definitely need to describe the whole incident in detail later, so Professor Flitwick, who stayed behind, agreed. I'm fine, except that Professor Quirrell was seriously injured and was taken away by Mrs. Pomley for treatment. Jerry froze for a moment, then patted Hermione on the shoulder with a smile. On the other side, Daphne in the Slytherin team immediately pouted when she saw this, and let out a cold snort. At this time, Snape also walked into the Great Hall. Obviously, for a wizard of his level, it didn't take much effort to deal with a troll. What really matters is figuring out where the troll came from in the basement, and where did the troll break into Hogwarts Castle. However, after careful questioning, the 4 directors found that neither Hermione nor Jerry knew how the troll appeared on the basement floor. Hermione is the troll and Professor Quirrell encountered at the stairs on the first floor of the dungeon, and Jerry only appeared after leaving the common room and hearing Hermione's scream. So, if you want to know what's going on, you have to ask Professor Quirrell, who was the first to contact the troll. However, we have to wait for Mrs. Pontrule to stabilize Professor Quirrell's injury before asking. In fact, when answering the question, in order to prevent Snape from using legilimency to himself, Jerry deliberately did not meet Snape's eyes, and also turned on the Superman mode, forcing his brain to repeat his own rhetoric. However, according to Snape's expression he inadvertently observed, the other party probably didn't use legilimency spell on him. That's right, anyone with quality should not casually peep into other people's hearts, and besides the fact that the sniper rifle was hidden in his speech just now, everything else is true, and there is nothing doubtful about it. After listening to Jerry and Hermione's statement, Professor McGonagall repeated that he would give Jerry 10 points, which made all the little wizards in Slytherin cheer. To Jerry's surprise, Snape unexpectedly added 3 points to Hermione. The reason was that Hermione had informed the professors of what had happened on the basement floor in a timely manner, which deserved a reward. After everything was over, Professor McGonagall personally sent Hermione back to the Gryffindor common room, and Snape also brought the little Slytherin wizards back to the Slytherin common room. Professor Flitwick and Professor Sprout patrol the castle to see if any other trolls have broken into the castle. 12 o'clock at night, Jerry got up quietly and left the dormitory. From the 2 abandoned classrooms, he retrieved the tranquilizer sniper rifle and the small box dropped from Professor Quirrell's wizard robe. Then turn on the Superman mode and carefully go to the room of response on the 8th floor. During this period, he met Mrs. Norris who was on patrol. However, under the effect of catnip powder, Mrs. Norris did not cause him any trouble. Inside the House of Requirements, Jerry put the anesthetic sniper rifle back behind the bust of the wizard, and then took out the small palm-sized box with some expectation, and slowly opened it. It's really a magic space equipment made with alchemy. Holding the box in front of his eyes, through the palm-sized box, he seemed to lift a cloud in the sky. Through the hole under the cloud, he saw an open space about the size of a football field, and there was a typical building. Small English cottage. How do you get in such a small hole? Looking at the hole that was only the size of a palm, and then looking at his own body shape, Jerry felt a little bit difficult. But after thinking about it, since Professor Quirrell can release a giant monster 3 to 4 meters high from such a small hole, his size doesn't seem to be a big deal. Putting the opened box on the ground, Jerry imitated the way Newt entered the world of suitcases in the movie, stretched his foot towards the opening of the box, and then thought that I would go in. Sure enough, a wave of spatial fluctuation appeared above the box, and his foot actually protruded into the space inside the box. There was a ladder about 8 or 9 meters long at the entrance of the box. After one of his feet went in, he stepped on the ladder. After standing firmly on the ladder, he immediately lifted the other foot outside, and also stretched into the space of the box. Just like that, walking down the ladder, soon, his figure completely disappeared in the box, leaving only the palm-sized box left alone on the ground of the room of requirement. End of this chapter. Chapter 78 3 Unforgivable curses. All the way down the ladder, soon Jerry's feet were on the soft green lawn. He raised his head and carefully looked around the space inside the box, and blurted out with a sigh, "The needle does not rub." A luminous sphere floats above the space, illuminating the entire box space brightly. It is estimated that it is a magic item similar to a little sun made by alchemy combined with the lighting spell. In addition to a piece of green lawn on the ground, a small area was specially planned and a lot of precious herbs were planted. Some of them he'd seen in 1,000 Wonderful Herbs and Fungi, and some he didn't know at all. There is also a reservoir next to the medicine field, and the water in it is crystal clear. There are also some trees planted around, and the overall look is like a small villa with a huge yard. Walking along the green lawn into the small villa, this is a very common classical English villa in the wizarding world, with some Victorian styles. Opening the door is a long foyer, the floor is covered with a purple carpet. Stepping on the carpet through the foyer into the hall, you will see a beautiful fireplace and various carved furniture. Obviously, Professor Quirrell was one of the richer wizards. The entire villa has 2 floors. The first floor is mainly the entrance hall, kitchen, dining room, and magic laboratory. The magic laboratory, or the potion refining room, is more suitable. In addition to a whole set of valuable potion refining equipment, there is also a large cabinet that stores various potion materials. And some already refined magic potions that Jerry knows or doesn't know. It seems that although Professor Quirrell is not a potion master, he also has a lot of accomplishments in potion refining. Also, wizards who generally like to study black magic, the level of potion refining is not too low. The second floor is mainly composed of 3 bedrooms, a living room and a bathroom. After a careful search, Jerry found Professor Quirrell's reserve of 1,000 gold galleons on the entire second floor, and a notebook of Professor Quirrell's research on black magic. Among them, what surprised Jerry the most was that in this notebook, Professor Quirrell actually recorded the experience of learning the 3 unforgivable curses, the Cruciatus Curse, the Imperious Curse and the Killing Curse. In addition, there is the Fierce Fire Curse, which is very difficult to control, and some curses that are not particularly common. It can be said to be full of gains. When he was in the main world, Jerry never worried about money, because with his magical ability, it is not too difficult to really get money. But in the world of wizards, everyone knows magic, and he is still a novice magician. If he wants to get a large number of galleons so smoothly, it will be a little troublesome. He has thought about using some capital and financial means to make money, but on the one hand, he is not very proficient in these things, on the other hand, his age, time, and strength and other aspects do not allow it. As a first-year little wizard, now he mainly focuses on learning magic, and he can't leave school. Moreover, if you attack the existing rule system at will, without the support of certain strength and influence, the consequences will definitely not be optimistic. Later, he thought of the 8-eyed spider in the Forbidden Forest, the venom of the giant spider, which was a precious item worth 100 galleons per pint. But considering that the acromantula is marked as dangerous at XXXXX level in the textbook of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find It, and their number, he thinks it's better to forget it for the time being. Although Harry and Ron were not hurt in the movie when they stood out from the siege of countless acromantulas, it was because they were the protagonists. The level of danger at the XXXXX level is the same level as that of the fire dragon, which means that if ordinary elite wizards encounter it alone, if they don't react fast enough, they will be overturned. Although giant 8-eyed spiders are not as powerful as fire dragons, they have intelligence no less than that of humans, and they live in groups, and their venom is very deadly. Therefore, finding 1,000 gold galleons in Professor Quirrell's box is still very urgent for Jerry. Of course, Professor Quirrell's black magic notes are actually much more valuable than 1,000 gold galleons. As long as Jin Gallon thinks of a way and is willing to spend time, it is not impossible to make money, but black magic such as the 3 unforgivable curses and Fierce Fire Curse, as well as Professor Quirrell's experience on these advanced spells, cannot be bought by Jin Gallon. Arrived. With Professor Quirrell's black magic notes, I believe that even if there is no one to guide him, he can learn to master it slowly by just refreshing his mind and taking time to study on his own. The Cruciatus Curse tortures information, the Imperious Curse controls the mind, the Killing Curse kills, and the Fierce Fire Curse attacks and clears the field. After mastering these 4 black arts, his magic strength will definitely increase a lot. If you encounter an abomination next time, you may not need hard steel at all, and an Imperious Curse will do it. This wave is really not a loss. After returning to the response room again, he put the small box in his pocket, and Jerry felt that although his plan to attack Professor Quirrell this time had some dangers and loopholes, it was really worth it. If you don't take some risks, how can you get rich overnight? After Halloween, because of the hype among Slytherin wizards, everyone knows that their defense against the dark arts class teaches Quirrell. He was stunned and seriously injured by a giant monster, but he survived thanks to the first-year Slytherin freshman Jerry Carmen. Therefore, all the wizards in Hogwarts, apart from knowing that the famous Harry Potter came to the 1st grade this year, they also know that among the 1st graders in Slytherin this year, there is a very good little wizard Jerry Carmen. The name of Jerry Carmen has also gradually spread from the original first-year freshman to the eyes of other senior wizards. Maybe they don't know who Jerry Carmen is yet, but at least they already know the name. In this way, the time came to November. After entering November, the weather becomes very cold. The mountains around the school are grey and covered with ice and snow, and the surface of the Black Lake is as cold and hard as tempered steel. Every morning there is frost on the ground. During this time, Jerry also studied magic knowledge crazily. In addition to attending classes and eating during the day, he spent most of his time searching for various materials in the library. Or go to Snape to ask some incomprehensible magic principles, and discuss some magic extensions and spell applications with Hermione. At night, I quietly go to the response room to practice and study black magic. Or occasionally take time to enter the small villa in the box space, try to follow some potion formulas found in the library, and go back to practice making some potions. In short, Jerry feels that he lives every day extremely fulfilling, learning new things every day, making progress and becoming stronger. Except for the astonishing consumption of Little Red Star, everything else is very good. However, before he came in this time, he had accumulated more than 50,000 Little Red Stars. Even if it was consumed quickly, it should be enough for him to last until the end of this semester. The editor has already decided to put it on the shelves this Friday, and it will definitely be updated at that time. I hope that book friends will support you a lot. Also, thank you Uncle Jerry for your daily rewards. He is already the rudder of this book, woo woo woo, I'm touched, only after it's put on the shelves, I will thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 79 The Quidditch match Saturday morning, wearing a green Slytherin scarf, Jerry walked into the auditorium as usual. As soon as he entered the door, his eyes lit up, and a strong smell of grilled sausages entered his nostrils. In terms of the various breakfasts in Hogwarts, his favorite is the big grilled sausage, mainly because there is really a lot of meat in it. He uses the refreshing function a lot every day, which consumes not only the Little Red Star, but also the energy in his body. So if possible, he hopes that he can eat meat every day, and have high-sugar snacks and drinks every day to supplement the energy he consumes every day. If other little wizards have observed Jerry's eating carefully, they can actually find that he tries to maintain an elegant posture while eating. However, he may eat several times more food per meal than a normal adult. Even Gore and Crab, who are super edible, actually eat far less than half of Jerry's food. There will also be a phenomenon: if there is nothing to do, Jerry will be the last to leave the table every time. Jerry, will you watch the Quidditch match at noon? Just as Jerry sat down, before he had time to pick up a big sausage, Daphne, who was opposite, suddenly asked him expectantly. Of course, today it's Slytherin versus Gryffindor. Jerry smiled and gave an affirmative answer. In fact, with his character, if he had half a day to watch a group of young wizards playing on broomsticks, he might as well study the 3 unforgivable curses. It has been a week since he got the 3 unforgivable curses, and he still has no way to successfully release them. However, there is no way, who let him be the Slytherin team seeker. One of the 2 sides in today's match is the Slytherin team, so he still has to participate. Moreover, just 2 days before he joined the Slytherin team, Snape had given him the promised newest Nimbus 2000. Besides, if Snape hadn't helped him resolve many doubts during this period of time, his magic progress would definitely not have been so fast. For you, this is a small flag that symbolizes our Slytherin. We can wave the small flag together and cheer for Slytherin. Hearing that Jerry was going to visit the competition, Daphne immediately took out the green flag she had prepared earlier from below, and handed it to Jerry with burning eyes. In fact, in a normal situation like this, when there are teams from the academy participating in the competition, there would hardly be any young wizard who would not watch. But Daphne still asked Jerry in advance. The main thing is Jerry's usual performance. It is really possible to do such a thing. In the eyes of all the little Slytherin wizards, Jerry is very good at almost all subjects, very polite to everyone, perfect. The only fly in the ointment is that Jerry seldom, or never at all, participated in group activities held privately by the little wizards of Slytherin. Except when you are sleeping in class, whenever you see Jerry, he is definitely reading. It's just that the location is different. Sometimes it's in the library, sometimes it's in the common room, and sometimes it's on the meadow under the sunset by the Black Lake. In short, apart from studying, Jerry doesn't seem to have any other hobbies. But it was also true that many Slytherins, including the little Malfoy who was a little unhappy with Jerry, admired him very much in their hearts. This also led to Daphne thinking that Jerry may not necessarily watch Slytherin's Quidditch match. Okay, thank you, classmate Daphne. Jerry froze for a moment, then took the small green flag naturally. After a while, he will play directly, but this small flag will not be available. However, he promised Marcus to keep the fact that he became a seeker secret, and it was difficult to explain anything. At 11 o'clock in the morning, almost all the professors and little wizards came to the Quidditch pitch. On the stands in the east, west, north, south, and 4 directions of the entire stadium, there were 4 little wizards from the academy standing with clear banners, and each of them wore a scarf that belonged to their own academy. Gryffindor is red and yellow. Red represents fire, a symbol of bravery. Slytherin is a green room. Green represents water, a symbol of blood. Hufflepuff is yellow and black. Yellow represents earth, a symbol of kindness. Ravenclaws is the blue Baxiang room. Blue represents air, and symbolizes wisdom. In order to prevent the little wizards from being unable to see the scene of the game clearly, some of the stands were raised into the air with a powerful levitation spell at this time, but many little wizards still brought binoculars. In the middle of the stands, there were some wooden towers that were a little higher than ordinary stands. These towers were filled with school professors, commentators, and some non-school wizards who came from Hogsmeade Village to watch the game. "What are you looking for?" In the Slytherin stands, Pansy watched Daphne looking around, as if she was looking for someone. "Jerry, he said that he would come to watch the game when he had dinner in the morning, why hasn't he seen anyone else until now?" Daphne couldn't help frowning. She also wants to cheer for Team Slytherin with Jerry. Pan-Xi covered her mouth and laughed. "Jerry? It's not like you don't know. Maybe that guy forgot the time while reading a book. Did you forget the last Halloween dinner? Don't worry, Quidditch matches usually take 2 to 3 hours to end, and he will definitely come before the end of the game." "Okay." When Daphne heard this, she had no choice but to nod her head, and turned her gaze to the center of the competition. At the same time, in the Slytherin team locker room, Jerry, who had already changed into a green Quidditch robe, stood calmly in front of the exit. "Jerry, don't be nervous for a while, as long as you can play at the same level as last time. Oh no, as long as you can play at 1/10 of the level last time, we can win for sure." The captain Marcus on the side encouraged Jerry nervously. Although Marcus was shocked by Jerry's performance last time, he knew that there was still a difference between private training and real competition on the field. After all, in the real arena, with so many people watching, if the mental quality is not up to standard, it is easy for the level to drop sharply, or even become too nervous to compete. After all, Jerry is only a first-year freshman. Even though he is very talented, but has never experienced a game, Marcus is still a little worried. Especially since Jerry hasn't participated in their training even once. "Captain, you look more nervous than me, don't worry, I won't let you down." Jerry looked up and gave Marcus a reassuring look. He doesn't have time to waste 2 or 3 hours here, it's the right thing to finish early, to call it a day and go back to study magic. End of this chapter. Chapter 80. The game that ends the fastest in history. There are 7 players in a Quidditch game, 3 chasers, 2 batters, a keeper, and a seeker. 3 of the chasers are responsible for scrambling for the quaffle and throwing it into the opponent's hoop to score a goal, scoring 10 points. The 2 hitters are responsible for knocking the aggressive bludgers into the air, escorting their own players, or better yet, hitting the opposing player if the technique allows. The goalkeeper guards the goal, preventing opposing players from throwing the quaffle into one of their 3 scoring hoops. And the most important thing is the seeker, he is responsible for catching the golden snitch. After catching the golden snitch, the game is over, and at the same time, he will get a full 150 points. Therefore, under normal circumstances, whichever team seeker catches the snitch first basically wins. After all, unless the strength of the team members on one side is much worse than that of the other side, it is impossible to have such a big gap of 150. However, the snitch is not so easy to catch. In history, there have even been tragic situations where the game was held for several days because the seekers on both sides could not catch the snitch. Slytherin has been able to suppress Gryffindor before, because Gryffindor's seeker is not as strong as his seeker, and every time his seeker catches the snitch first. In fact, in the previous games, before Slytherin's seeker caught the snitch, Gryffindor's score was ahead of Slytherin's, but the gap was not as big as 150. You know, Gryffindor's pursuers and hitters are very strong, especially the captain of the Gryffindor team who just graduated last year, the most powerful chaser Charlie Weasley. It is said that Charlie Weasley was invited by the British Quidditch team when he graduated, but he refused. If Jerry can't play normally, causing the opposite seeker to catch the snitch first, then this game against the Gryffindor team will be in danger. The 7-year record of defeating those reckless Gryffindors was about to end at the hands of his current captain. That's why Marcus is more nervous than Jerry himself right now. Now, let's invite 2 teams to enter. The Quidditch match commentator, Lee Jordan, a Gryffindor third-year wizard, announced loudly at this time with the amplifying charm. As his voice fell, the cheering shouts of the little wizards came from outside like a tsunami. Okay, time is up, good luck to everyone. Marcus stepped on his broomstick and flew out first, followed by Jerry on the Nimbus 2000, and the 5 team members behind. On the playing field, the Gryffindor team wearing bright red Quidditch robes and the Slytherin team wearing dark green robes quickly flew out from both ends of the entire Quidditch pitch. Then he waved his hands coquettishly in the sky, and then slowly landed on both sides of Ms. Hooch, who was already standing in the center of the arena. The atmosphere at the scene reached a climax immediately. Gryffindor. Slytherin. The shouts became more and more one after another. But obviously, the voice of cheering for Gryffindor is far louder than the voice of cheering for Slytherin. No way, in terms of popularity, the brave and enthusiastic Gryffindor is more attractive than the arrogant and contemptuous Slytherin. So in addition to their respective houses, the cheers of Wenclaw and Hufflepuff were mostly given to Gryffindor. But when they looked carefully at the players on both sides of the field, they found something was wrong. That is, the seeker of the Slytherin team is not Terence Higgs, who has not changed for 4 years, but a new face, a little wizard who obviously looks like a first or second year. That's Jerry. How did he become Slater's seeker? At this moment in the Slytherin stands, Daphne and all the Slater wizards let out an exclamation at the same time. On the other side of the Gryffindor stand, Hermione, Harry and Ron, who were familiar with Jerry, also let out similar exclamations. Jerry, it turned out to be Jerry. Hermione, did you know that Jerry became a first-year seeker? I don't know, but it's impossible. He reads in the library with me every weekend, and has never been to the Quidditch pitch for training. Hearing Harry and Ron's inquiry, Hermione shook her head in disbelief. Oh, Merlin's beard, we found out that Slytherin has actually changed their seeker. They boldly used a new seeker. Can anyone tell me the name of this new seeker? At this time, the voice of the commentator Lee Jordan came again from the tower stand. What? His name is Jerry Carmen. Is that the Jerry who saved Professor Quirrell from the troll? But, if I remember correctly, he should be a freshman. Slytherin's bold use of first-year freshman, is it a bold and arrogant move, or is there some special reason? Let us wait and see. Under Lee Jordan's explanation, all the little wizards knew that this new seeker was the Slytherin freshman who saved Professor Quirrell from the troll on Halloween a week ago. They had only heard of Jerry's name before, but not all of them had seen Jerry. Now the whole of Hogwarts, including the wizards in Hogsmeade, knew him. However, at this time, most people are not very optimistic about replacing Terence Higgs, who has 5 years of experience, and using a freshman as the most important seeker. Especially the senior wizards of Slytherin, most of them frowned. On the field, Wood of the Gryffindor team whispered to the players with some excitement, "Play hard for a while, we will win this game. Listen, I want everyone to play the game fairly and honestly." With a silver whistle in one hand and a broom in the other, Ms. Hooch glanced at both teams, especially Slytherin captain Marcus. Because this guy often fouled because of his strength and size in previous games. After finishing speaking, she picked up the silver whistle and blew fiercely. Immediately, all the players of the two teams rose into the sky. The quaffle was immediately picked up by Angelina Johnson of Gryffindor. "What a chaser that girl is, and she's pretty good looking." The voice of Lee Jordan's commentary sounded again. The snitch was released. Merlin, it was so fast, it disappeared in a blink of an eye. Oh, our Slytherin is looking for the ball. Did he find the snitch? Oh, Merlin's underpants, what did I see? I must be dazzled. How could that be? Jerry, Slytherin's new seeker, he caught the snitch. It has been less than a minute since the golden snitch was released. This is probably the fastest game in Quidditch history. End of this chapter. Chapter 81 Testimonials. If there is no accident, it will be on the shelves at 12 noon tomorrow. Please subscribe. Even the first order is good, because how much the first order is related to whether there are recommended seats later, so it is very important. It's miserable to sell, it's really miserable. I've been writing for almost 3 years since I started, and I've finished 3 books, and I've gone to the street for 3 books. Half of the time when doing sales, and 400 to 500 when it was low. But I still gritted my teeth and persisted, just because I like it. I like this kind of staying at home all day long, except for coding, cooking, and watching TV, I don't have to think about other life. You don't need to hold 5 or 6 meetings a day, you don't need to listen to the boss nonsense, you don't need to engage in relationships with customers against your will every day, and you don't need to go to dinner parties, drink wine, or talk about performance when you are dying of exhaustion. Can you imagine how painful it is for a person who doesn't like socializing very much, but has been in the sales industry for 5 years? He has done telemarketing, face-to-face sales, and meeting sales. Going to work every day is like visiting a grave. This book has finally made some progress. The editor said that he should write a promising masterpiece, and he also sincerely thanks all the book friends for their support. Finally, let me talk about the update. After it is put on the shelves, it will basically maintain 3 changes every day, and there will be 5 changes on the first day of tomorrow. If the first subscription exceeds 1,000, 1 chapter will be added for every additional 100 subscriptions. There will be rewards and monthly tickets. Slowly make up on the basis of the third watch. Mainly I think it will be on the shelves at the end of the month, and I have saved a few chapters before it comes. Last but not least, ask for an order, a subscription, and a ticket, 100 consecutive air kisses. End of this chapter. Chapter 82 Christmas Eve, Part 1. The flying speed of the Nimbus 2000 is indeed not comparable to ordinary broomsticks. So this time Jerry caught the snitch faster than when he bet with Marcus and others before. The golden snitch is only the size of a walnut, and it seems to have self-awareness. It is especially good at dodging. Although the speed of the broomstick can catch up, the physical fitness of the seeker is not much stronger than that of ordinary people, so it is difficult to catch it. After Jerry turned on the Superman mode, his 5 senses were greatly enhanced, and his control over the body reached the level of a master of Chinese martial arts. There is an ancient master of Chinese martial arts who can catch flying flies with chopsticks. Jerry stretched out his hand to catch a golden snitch the size of a walnut. Of course, it is not difficult. During the whole process, what limited him was only the speed of the broomstick. Seeing Jerry grabbing the snitch and landing in front of the referee Ms. Hooch, the entire arena seemed to be held down at this moment. Angelina, who had just grabbed the quaffle, stopped throwing the ball. The Quidditch players of the 2 teams were stunned, and the little wizards in the auditorium all opened their mouths. Even the referee, Ms. Hodge, was stunned for 10 seconds before she realized that she reached out and took the golden snitch handed over by Jerry. After checking that it was indeed the snitch for the competition, Ms. Hooch reached out and gave the answer. Slytherin, win. On the commentary stand, after seeing Ms. Hooch's signal, Lee Jordan loudly announced the result of the game. Slytherin. 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 Jerry. 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 Lee Jordan's words seemed to turn on the start button again, and the entire arena suddenly fell into an uproar, while all the little wizards in Slytherin started to cheer wildly. From shouting Slytherin loudly at the beginning, to shouting Jerry loudly later. It's not that Slytherin hasn't won games, and it's not that he hasn't won the Quidditch Cup, but none has ever been won so quickly, so cleanly, so legendary. The entire match took less than 2 minutes from start to finish, less than a minute from the time the golden snitch was released to being caught. This simply broke the Hogwarts Quidditch record, and even broke the record in the entire Quidditch history. How could it not make all the wizards in Slytherin feel excited and proud? And Marcus and other members of the Slytherin Quidditch team all fell down, dropped the broomstick in their hands, stepped forward to lift Jerry, and threw him into the air non-stop with cheers. Although after Jerry's performance last time, they had already prepared for today's result to a certain extent, but when the reality really happened, their mood was not much calmer than those little wizards on the audience stage at this time. They knew that as long as Jerry existed, the Slytherin team would have no opponents in the next 7 years. The only regret is that they will become very leisurely on the field in the future. In this way, Hogwarts' first Quidditch match of the year ended perfectly in such a legendary way. And Jerry's name was completely spread in Hogwarts and even the wizards of Hogsmeade. Jerry, the strongest seeker in history, was born. On the other hand, Jerry himself is very calm. All he thinks in his mind at this moment is to end the game early so that he can go back to study magic sooner. After the first Quidditch match, Jerry found that in the following days, he seemed to become more popular. Not only the wizards of Slytherin, but even the wizards of the other 3 colleges would greet him with a smile when they met him at school, and some little wizards even gave him many nicknames. For example, Quick J, King of the Ball, Golden Snitch Buster, Legend of Quidditch and so on. Of course, this is considered a relatively good influence on Jerry. Because of his fame and popularity, he will have some bonuses in many things, and overall it is still very good. However, during this period of time, he also discovered a not-so-good problem. That is, his time in the main world is static, but the growth of his body is not static, he seems to grow taller. This also means that when traveling between the two worlds, his body and age will grow faster than his peers in either world. Just like if he stayed in this world for 7 or 8 years before returning to the main world, then in the instant of the main world, he would change from an 11-year-old child to an 18-year-old adult. In this way, it is almost difficult not to expose his identity. Originally, an outstanding kid like him was already very conspicuous when he appeared in an area where wizards haunted, and he might have already entered the site of Shield. The reason why he didn't confirm it was most likely because he misled him by speaking in Chinese before. Originally, he planned to keep a low profile when he was in middle school, to reduce the possibility of being suspected as much as possible, and he would naturally not be afraid when he became stronger. But if there are obvious changes in his body, it is basically difficult to hide it. Of course, this is not the most troublesome thing. After all, there are magic and potions, and it is not impossible for him to solve this problem. What really embarrassed him was the issue of longevity. Although the lifespan of a wizard is generally longer than that of normal people, it doesn't grow too much. He always travels back and forth like this, and even if the panel opens other worlds in the future, he will go to other worlds. If this continues, it may appear that his peers in the main world have just reached adulthood, and his lifespan is almost exhausted. So, now he began to think about whether he should take the risk to get the magic stone that can refine the longevity potion. Although the longevity of the Philosopher's Stone also has great disadvantages, at least he can live forever. The longer he lives, the more time he has to think about other ways. That is, it is not an easy task to take the Philosopher's Stone under Dumbledore's nose. In this regard, he can only take one step at a time, and maybe there will be a better way later. In this way, the time soon came to mid-December, and the outside of Hogwarts was also covered with thick snow, and the entire Black Lake was completely frozen. Christmas is coming soon. Hogwarts' first semester will end a week before Christmas, and the next semester will start in early January. Little wizards can choose to spend Christmas at Hogwarts, or they can choose to go home. In the last week, Jerry has filled in his name on the school's statistical home list. Of course, he didn't go back to the orphanage for Christmas, but he had his own special plans. End of this chapter. Chapter 83 Breaking into the Library at Night, Part 2, Jerry, wait a minute, do we have something to ask you? On Saturday morning, Jerry, who had just finished breakfast, was about to go to the library with Hermione to read a book as usual, but was stopped by Harry and Ron. What's up? Jerry sat down curiously. Hermione on the side explained, Jerry, do you still remember the incident when we accidentally broke into the restricted area on the 4th floor? Of course I remember, you also said that there is a huge 3-headed dog guarding something important. Jerry nodded. He happened to be planning to go to the response room that day, but had no choice but to return because of this accident. Harry said that someone was going to steal something important from Dumbledore, and that thing was related to a wizard named Nicole Flamel. He wanted to ask you if you saw this person while reading in the library. Hermione continued. In fact, Harry first asked Hermione, because Hermione usually acted as if she knew everything, but Hermione had never seen this name in the library book. And Hermione knew that Jerry read more books than herself, and the types of books they read were not the same, so she suggested to ask Jerry, and it happened that Jerry also knew about their going to the 4th floor. Nicole Flamel, the creator of the Philosopher's Stone, the alchemist who lived 600 or 700 years old. Jerry's heart moved, and he didn't answer right away, but turned to Harry and asked, someone wants to steal something from the forbidden area on the 4th floor, who is it? Harry replied with dodge eyes, well, I'm actually not sure yet, but he's probably the one who released the troll on Halloween. Jerry narrowed his eyes, and he roughly guessed that the person Harry wanted to talk about should be Snape, but Jerry is a Slytherin, and Snape is the Dean of Slytherin, so Harry didn't say it. However, what made him a little puzzled was that his own appearance disrupted the Halloween event and the Quidditch event. How did Harry target Snape again? After thinking about it, he felt that Dumbledore probably did something secretly in order to train Harry, and this happened. Also, if Dumbledore wants to experience Harry, then no matter how Jerry affects the development of the plot, he will lead Harry to the road to the forbidden area on the 4th floor. How did you know that Nicole Flamel was related to the forbidden area on the 4th floor? To confirm, Jerry asked again. This time it was Ron who gave the answer first. While you and Hermione were reading in the library, Harry and I went to play with Hagrid, and we only found out when Hagrid slipped a word. The three-headed dog is actually Hagrid's pet named Lua, who lent Dumbledore to guard that important thing. Harry immediately nodded and echoed, unfortunately, no matter how we asked him later, he didn't tell us what that thing was. So that's the case. I heard that Mr. Hagrid's hut is very interesting. Next time you have time, can you take me there to play? Jerry smiled and nodded again. Of course. Hagrid is a very nice guy. He likes us to hang out with him. Jerry, do you know who Nico Flamel is? Harry couldn't bear it any longer. Do not know. Jerry looked at both Harry and Ron with disappointed expressions, and immediately changed his mouth, but I know where to find information about this man. Where? Harry and Ron had hope again. Jerry smiled, since Hermione and I don't know who Nicole Flamel is, it means that the introduction about this wizard must not be in the general area of the library. You mean? Hermione at the side seemed to think of something when she heard the words, and immediately turned her head to look at Jerry in disbelief. Yes, you guessed right, it's there. Jerry made that, you guessed it, look. Harry and Ron were scratching their heads in anxiety. Where are you talking about? Library, restricted section. Jerry and Hermione replied in unison. Restricted section. That's right, why didn't we think of that? Harry and Ron suddenly exclaimed, and at the same time they understood in their hearts that if they couldn't find it in the ordinary area, they must go to the restricted area to find it. But Jerry, you can only go to the restricted area with a note signed by the professor, and you can only borrow one book at a time. The professors will not allow us to borrow books in the restricted area. Hermione's little brow furrowed again. Jerry lowered his head, then looked left and right, signaling the three of them to get closer. Shouldn't we just sneak there at night? What? Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at Jerry in disbelief at the same time. In their eyes, Jerry is a three-good student with all the advantages, elegant, polite, good grades, and the strongest seeker who broke the Quidditch history record. Such Jerry actually suggested that everyone violate the school rules and visit the restricted area of the library at night. How could this not make their jaws drop in shock? It's as if, when you were in school, the number one student in the whole school, the good student in the eyes of all the teachers, suddenly pulled you to say that we skipped class at night to take a night out. Seeing this, Jerry laughed and said, actually, you don't need to be so surprised. I often hang out in the castle at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. This is my special hobby. And don't worry, I have a special way to avoid being caught by Filch and Mrs. Norris arrive. I was thinking about how to completely remove my suspicion from Shield, but no, someone gave me a pillow when I fell asleep. If he remembered correctly, there seemed to be a magic book called Powerful Potion in the restricted section of the library, which contained the formula and production process of the compound decoction. It would definitely be impossible for him to enter the restricted section of the library by himself, but the danger would be much smaller if Harry was to take the blame. It's too dangerous, we'll all be fired if we get caught. Hermione immediately voted against it. Obviously, she did not approve of this violation of school rules. We can't get caught. Ron thought it was so cool to break into the library at night. Harry also persuaded Hermione, Hermione, don't you want to know who Nico Flamel really is and what exactly he and Dumbledore kept on the 4th floor? This Hermione began to hesitate. At this time, Jerry finally added a fire, Hermione, trust me, I won't let you get caught. Okay then. But only this once. Hermione nodded slowly after hearing the assurance from the most reliable Jerry. In fact, although Hermione looks a bit rigid and dogmatic like Professor McGonagall on the surface, being assigned to Gryffindor shows that she still likes this kind of adventure very much in her bones. In fact, many illegal activities in the later period of the original work were initiated by Hermione. End of this chapter. Chapter 84 Basics and Extensions of Alchemy, 3rd Watch, 12 o'clock at night. Jerry quietly left the Slytherin dormitory, skillfully dodged Filch on patrol, knocked Mrs. Norris down with catnip powder, and came to the 8th floor of the castle. Today he didn't go to the room of requirement, but came to the door of the Gryffindor common room, in front of the portrait of the fat lady. Come on, let's go to the library. Seeing Harry, Hermione, and Ron coming out from behind the portrait, Jerry waved to them in a low voice, and took the lead downstairs. However, when passing by the 6th floor, the three of Harry were shocked when they saw Mrs. Norris sitting on the ground leaning against the escalator in sage mode, and almost turned around and wanted to run away. They knew how powerful Loyal Lizzie was as a complaint cat. It's okay, don't worry, she probably needs to lie here for 2 or 3 hours before returning to normal. Hearing Jerry's words, the three found that after seeing them, Mrs. Norris just glanced at them, and then fell into a daze again, as if imagining some beautiful things. How lazy almost stayed. When the four of them reached the third floor, Jerry suddenly paused before continuing to walk to the second floor. After turning on the Superman mode, he just felt the empty place next to him. Someone glanced at him, and he also smelled the same smell in his nose as the last time Harry and the others broke into the fourth floor and came out. He knew that Dumbledore should have come with the disillusionment charm. As the headmaster of Hogwarts, he will not, like other professors, take care of the little wizards going out at night, nor let the ubiquitous portraits pay attention to where the little wizards have gone and what they have done, but Harry was definitely an exception. As soon as Harry left the common room, the fat lady would probably report the matter to Dumbledore soon. The hole is open. He took out his wand and threw an unlocking spell at the library door, and the door opened very silkily. The majestic Hogwarts library, where so many dangerous magic books are hidden, can be easily opened with just the most common lock-picking spell. This is the water of the sea. Shaking their heads, the three of Jerry and Harry walked into the library together, and came to the restricted section where they had never been before. Toxic magic, book of spells, black magic of evil, the curse collection, powerful potion. Looking at the books on the bookshelf, Jerry suddenly had the urge to pack all these magic books into his own small box. However, after feeling the hidden eyes that glanced at him from time to time, he still spoke very rationally. Everyone, look for books related to the biography of the character. If you can't find it, you can look for some potion books, alchemy books, etc. Maybe he is not a conventional wizard. After speaking, he began to rummage through the bookshelves. It's just that since Dumbledore might be watching from the side, he didn't touch any books related to black magic. What he looked for were biographies, alchemy, potion books, and other books that were relatively less likely to attract Dumbledore's attention. It's just that when he was flipping through the book Powerful Potion, he stayed for a little longer, especially on the pages explaining the formula of the compound decoction. He stayed for a few seconds longer. However, after staying for 7 or 8 seconds longer, he closed the book and put it back naturally, and picked up another book. But in these 7 or 8 seconds, he has already firmly memorized the formula and production steps of the compound decoction by relying on the refreshing bonus. Found it. After putting down the book Powerful Potion, Jerry flipped through it for a while, and finally saw the introduction of Nicole Flamel in a book called Basics and Extensions of Alchemy. However, at this moment, Harry just opened a large black book, which suddenly let out a shrill, creepy scream. No, let's go. Jerry quickly put the Basics and Extensions of Alchemy into his arms, pulled Hermione, and ran outside. And Harry and Ron also realized that something was wrong at the same time. Such a loud scream would definitely attract Filch's attention. If they didn't leave now, they might not be able to leave. Sure enough, as soon as the four rushed out of the library, they heard Filch's footsteps and roar from the first floor. Violation of school rules, wait for me to catch you, hurry up, go upstairs. Jerry pulled Hermione and rushed upstairs with Harry and Ron. And Filch seemed to have noticed their footsteps, and there was a hot pursuit behind them. Go back to the lounge first. After reaching the 8th floor, Ron immediately proposed to go back to the Gryffindor common room and hide for a while. Filch could not enter the common room without a password. But this proposal was immediately rejected by Hermione. It's too late, even if there is a password, wake up the fat lady and let her open the door. Filch has already chased after him. Hermione still remembered the last time they came back at midnight, because she woke up the fat lady's dream, and she complained for a long time before opening the door for them. Now Filch is chasing after him, there is no such time. It's okay, come with me, I know a place where I can temporarily hide from Filch. Hearing the approaching footsteps from behind, Jerry didn't talk nonsense, and led the three of them directly towards the room of requirement. In fact, he had many ways to get rid of Filch, but now he only chose the room of requirement. Because, now Dumbledore is still with them. Jerry knew that he could hide from Filch and Mrs. Norris about going to the room of requirement every night, but definitely not from Dumbledore. After all, no matter how powerful he is, it is impossible to avoid all the murals that are everywhere in the entire castle. However, the room of requirement is not a particularly evil place, at least Dumbledore does not know that there is Voldemort's Horcrux in the storage room of the room of requirement. And a little wizard accidentally found a room where he could make his wishes come true, and he came to play every day, so it should still be possible to say. Especially now that Jerry has brought the three of Harry over, he can show Dumbledore that he has a clear heart. If a person wants to do bad things in secret, it is impossible to bring other people to his secret base at will. As for the three of Harry, will knowing about the room of requirement affect him? Of course not, they can't come to the room of requirement after midnight every day, and Jerry can't use the room of requirement at other times. What is this? Watching Jerry walk past the white wall 3 times in a row, and a door appeared on the white wall, the three of Harry's eyes widened. This is a very interesting place that I accidentally discovered, come in. Jerry waved his hand and led the three of them into the room of requirement. End of this chapter. Chapter 85 The Birth of the Four Irons, 4 more, wow, what place is this? Hermione, Harry, and Ron couldn't help letting out a gasp as they entered the room of requirement. It was a small empty square with all kinds of targets inside, a beautifully shaped big bed, tables, chairs, and other items. I don't know what this place is, I just discovered it by accident. If I have nothing to do at night, I will come here to practice magic. Jerry walked to the bed and motioned for everyone to sit down first. No wonder you use magic so well, so you train every night. Hermione sat next to Jerry with an admiration on her face. She knew that Jerry's use of magic was the best in the whole first grade. When Professor Flitwick taught them, he even praised Jerry in Slytherin for how proficient he was in using magic. Because while they were still practicing and using the floating spell to float the feathers, Jerry was able to show in class that he could float a table at will. It turns out that Jerry is not a genius, but is practicing the use of magic spells every night. In this regard, the three of them admired Jerry's heart a little more. Hermione, you know, my dream is to become a righteous Auror who upholds the order of wizards, and of course I have to work harder in magic. Jerry explained without blushing and panting. In order not to be thought by professors such as Dumbledore and Snape that he will develop like Voldemort in the future, Jerry has conveyed an idea to the people around him from the very beginning. That is his dream, is to become a righteous Auror who is incompatible with the dark wizards and resolutely maintains the order of the wizards. Okay, let's not talk about this for now, this place will be our secret base from now on, if there is anything next time, we can come here to discuss, let's see who Nicole Flamel is. After speaking, Jerry took out the book Basic and Extended Alchemy in his arms. The three of Harry nodded immediately. Although this adventure was almost discovered by Filch, fortunately they finally found clues about Nicole Flamel. Opening Basics and Extensions of Alchemy, the four little heads gathered together and began to read. This Basics and Extensions of Alchemy mainly talks about the application of some basic alchemy and the transformation of related magic items. Alchemy is not within the scope of the Hogwarts curriculum, but this does not mean that it is not important, but because it is too advanced and difficult, basically it is difficult for ordinary wizards to achieve something. Generally, the learning content of Little Wizards is all about the history of magic, spells, potions, etc., while alchemy is mainly about refining items with magical abilities, and permanently refining the original one-time spells onto items, making them can be used unlimitedly. Like the Weasley's magic car, the Wizard's night bus, the time turner and all sorts of magic-related items, including that Professor Quirrell's box that is now in Jerry's hand. Alchemy is too advanced for a few people to understand, but when they turned to the back, they saw the name of Nick Flamel in the introduction about the famous alchemist. Nico Flamel, born in 1327, the most famous alchemist and the only known creator of the Philosopher's Stone, a magical substance with amazing properties. The Philosopher's Stone can turn any metal into pure gold, and it can also create an elixir of life, so that people who drink this medicine will never die. Over the centuries, there have been many reports about the Philosopher's Stone, but the only remaining one belongs to the famous alchemist and opera lover Mr. Nicole Flamel. My God, hasn't he already lived for more than 600 years? Hermione exclaimed. That big dog must be guarding Nick Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. I bet Nick Flamel asked Dumbledore to keep it for him, because they're friends and he knew someone was up to the Philosopher's Stone. So he moved the Philosopher's Stone from Gringotts. Harry seemed to understand everything at once. Who doesn't like a stone that can turn into gold and make you immortal? Ron shrugged. With that big dog guarding it, I guess there are all kinds of defenses arranged by Dumbledore inside. I don't think anyone can steal that Philosopher's Stone. Jerry also followed the trend and expressed his opinion. However, while expressing his opinion, he stared straight at the magic book in his hand, using the refresh function to quickly memorize the knowledge about alchemy in the magic book. Alchemy, he was very interested. The refreshing function is turned on, and Jerry can almost remember it with a photographic memory. If he wanted to dig in and learn slowly, even if he turned on refreshing and refreshing, he estimated that it would be absolutely difficult to master the profound knowledge of alchemy in a short time, but memorizing it would be much faster. Write it down, and when you have time, you can understand it slowly. In this way, after about half an hour, Jerry finally remembered all the contents of the entire basic and extended alchemy in his mind. Filch should have almost left. You guys go back to the dormitory, I will secretly put this book back in the library, and then return to the dormitory. The three of Harry nodded, and followed Jerry quietly out of the room of requirement. With this adventure to the library together, the relationship between the four is obviously closer than before, especially since Jerry also shared a secret base that only they know. Although Jerry helped Harry and Ron on the train in the past, after all, they were not assigned to a college and did not attend classes together. They had a good relationship, but they did not talk to each other. Basically, Harry and Ron have a strong relationship, and Hermione and Jerry have a deeper friendship because they often read books and discuss magic together. But after this time, the relationship between the four of them suddenly became very good. In the previous life, Jerry heard a saying, what kind of experience can make the relationship between people very strong? That is the 4 iron principles. We carried guns together, passed through windows together, shared the spoils together, and drifted past X together. Now the 4 of them violated the school rules together, broke into the library together at night, found out the secrets on the 4th floor together, and even established a secret base together, so the relationship is naturally strong. In the restricted area of the library on the 2nd floor, Jerry put basics and extensions of alchemy back in the restricted area, and sighed inwardly. Originally, he wanted to see if he could read other books by the way, but he felt the vague gaze behind him that never left him, so he gave up. That's right, Harry has already returned to the dormitory, so of course he doesn't need to follow. He came to the restricted area which is very dangerous for little wizards, how could Dumbledore not follow? In fact, today's delivery has exceeded his expectations, so there is no need to take any more risks. After leaving the library, Jerry went straight back to the dormitory to sleep. End of this chapter. Chapter 86, The Christmas Holiday Begins, 5th Watch. Nothing special had happened since the last time we found out who Nick Flamel was until the Christmas break. Jerry is also studying hard as usual, but during this time the focus is not on the spell, but on potion refining. When I went to the library, I mostly read books on potions, and even the questions I asked Snape were mostly related to potions. This was a huge relief to Snape. Invited by Harry during the period, Jerry and Hermione took a day to go to Hagrid's hut, and made a preliminary friendship with Hagrid. Hagrid was amazed that Harry and Ron had brought a Slytherin friend with them, because he knew that Harry and Ron were very disgusted with Slytherin. However, after getting along with Jerry, Hagrid quickly discovered the difference between Jerry and ordinary Slytherins. In particular, Jerry admired his rock cakes very much, and seemed to be very interested in magical animals, which made Hagrid have a good impression of him. It was full in an instant. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione were deeply shocked by the fact that Jerry could eat it, and Hagrid made the rock cake that was so hard that it would knock out teeth. Especially Ron, he felt that this was something he admired more than Jerry's excellent magical ability. Jerry can only say that he is in great shape and delicious to eat. In this way, the time has come to the first day of the Christmas holiday. After breakfast in the morning, except for some who stayed in school, the rest of the young wizards returned to the dormitory and packed up their things. After a while, they will take the Hogwarts Express together and leave Hogwarts Castle, just like they did when they started school, and Jerry is no exception. But his things are very few, because most of them were thrown into the small box by him in advance. Merry Christmas in advance. When Jerry, who had already packed his things and pulled the suitcase, walked to the door, as if thinking of something, he turned his head and waved to the little Malfoy trio who were still packing. The little Malfoy trio were obviously stunned for a moment. They didn't expect that Jerry, who was usually reading books and didn't communicate with them, would take the initiative to say hello today. But for some reason, the three of them felt a little happy at this moment. Thank you and Merry Christmas. Nodding, Jerry pulled the suitcase and left the Slytherin dormitory. When he came to the first floor, he didn't immediately follow the flow of young wizards to Hogsmeade Station, but came to the Great Hall first. Because we made an appointment to say goodbye to Harry and Ron here with Hermione. Hermione would definitely not choose to stay at school for Christmas because of her family, and Harry didn't want to go back to see the ugly face of his uncle's family, so he chose to stay at school. As for Ron, because his parents planned to visit their second son Charlie in Romania this Christmas, they also stayed with the three big brothers. Coming to the auditorium, Jerry found that today's auditorium is extraordinarily beautiful and magnificent compared to usual. The walls were hung with holly and mistletoe festoons, and all around stood a dozen towering Christmas trees, some with tiny icicles glittering, others with hundreds of candles flickering. Some are even covered with small golden bubbles transformed by magic. "Jerry, here." Just when Jerry's eyes were attracted by the various beautiful decorations in the auditorium, Harry and Ron waved to him at the Gryffindor long table. "Are you guys playing wizard chess?" Jerry stepped forward and found that Harry and Ron were playing wizard chess, which is very popular among wizards. Wizard chess is a magical chess game in which the pieces will move to the target square by themselves according to the player's command. When a piece is captured, it will be overturned by the opponent's piece, and then dragged out of the board. Jerry is not very interested in playing wizard chess, but he is very interested in the alchemy of refining wizard chess. During this period of time, he did not miss studying the basics and extensions of alchemy written down from the restricted area, which mentioned this kind of alchemy that endows ordinary substances with spiritual intelligence. However, the content is very profound, and he probably won't be able to do it in a short time. In fact, Jerry is still very shocked by this kind of alchemy that can endow ordinary matter with wisdom. If you don't delve into it, it seems to be nothing, but if you delve into it, you will feel that this kind of alchemy is really against the sky, and even a little scary. This is equivalent to creating a new race, a new life, which belongs to the level of God and Nuwa. Of course, compared to the real creation of life, it is still far away, but it has already developed in that direction. Just like now, apart from following orders, those chess pieces on the chessboard are still arguing, and even put forward their own opinions to Harry and Ron. Obviously, they already have their own personalities, or souls. There is also the magic car transformed by Arthur Weasley with alchemy and magic. Because of Ron's overuse, he ran into the Forbidden Forest angrily, and then became wild and unwilling to go back. The most outstanding thing is the Sorting Hat, which has a lifespan of thousands of years. It not only has wisdom no less than human beings, but also has special magical abilities. "Don't send me there, don't you see his horse? Send him, it doesn't matter if he dies." On the chessboard, Harry's bishop heard that Harry wanted him to go forward, and immediately pointed to the soldiers next to him angrily and ordered. Seeing this, Harry scratched his head in embarrassment. "My chess piece was lent to me by Simo, they don't trust me enough." "It's useless to trust, I'm a master at wizard chess, and even Hermione is no match for me." Ron raised his chin proudly when he heard that. This is the only ability he can show at present. "Jerry, do you want to have a game with me?" After Harry was settled, Ron rolled his eyes and turned his attention to Jerry, who was too good to be true. If he beats Jerry in wizard chess, he can take it out and brag about it in the future. "I don't have wizard chess, I'll buy a set after Christmas and play with you when school starts." Jerry just plans to take time to practice alchemy after his return this time, and wizard chess is relatively simple. If he can make a pair by himself, it can be regarded as an introduction to alchemy. "Jerry, Harry, Ron, you're all here." At this time, wrapped in a big Gryffindor scarf and dragging a super big suitcase that almost caught up with her height, Hermione happily walked towards the three of them. "Hermione, the Christmas holiday is 2 weeks, not 2 months, how do you have so much stuff?" Jerry felt that Hermione seemed to have stuffed all her belongings into the box, otherwise the box wouldn't be so bulging. "But I think these things are used during the holidays," Hermione said innocently with fluttering eyes. "I'll try my best and see if I can publish 2 more chapters later." End of this chapter. Chapter 87 Diagon Alley Big Purchase, 6 more, 15 minutes later, as soon as Jerry pushed Hermione's oversized suitcase to the corner of the box, the whole Hogwarts Express started slowly. Since some wizards, especially senior wizards, chose to stay in school to prepare for the exam, the number of young wizards on the Hogwarts Express was far less than when the school started. In this box of Jerry and Hermione, there were only the 2 of them. After putting down the suitcase, the 2 took out a magic book from their satchels almost at the same time. Then, they sat together and communicated while reading a book. The mountains and forests outside the car window gradually turned into snow-covered fields and muggle villages as the train moved forward. When it was almost noon, the train finally arrived at King's Cross Station in London. Passing through platform 9 3/4, passing through the passage opened with space magic, and changing back into muggle clothes, the little wizards, led by their parents, disappeared into the crowd. At the gate of the King's Cross platform, the Grangers had already arrived in their car early and waited because they had received a notification letter from Hermione with the school owl in advance. "Jerry, remember to call me." The car started, and Hermione poked her head out the window and waved to Jerry, who was standing there. "Yes, I will." Watching the car disappear into the street, Jerry took out a bottle from his pocket, and stuffed it with a few strands of Hermione's hair that he had just snatched on the train. "When I make the compound decoction, no one will doubt me again." Pulling his suitcase, which didn't contain much, Jerry went straight to the subway entrance. Orphanage, he will definitely not go back. Why go back? Now that there is trace surveillance, he can't do anything back to the orphanage, wasting time in vain. Now that he has stayed in the small world for more than 3 months, and frequently uses the boosting brain function, his number of little red stars is not much left. So, this time he plans to spend the 2 weeks of Christmas vacation in Diagon Alley. First of all, he needs to purchase in Diagon Alley. Although the Hogwarts library has a large number of books, because they are all aimed at young wizards, many magic books that are dangerous or adult wizards are basically placed in the restricted area. But those bookstores in Diagon Alley don't have these restrictions. As long as you have gold gallon, it is impossible for him to restrict you from buying books. Secondly, now that there are traces in his body and he has no ability to remove them, only Diagon Alley is the place where he can use magic freely during the holidays. For things like Zongxi, Jerry also inquired about it in many ways before the holiday. According to some senior Slater seniors, in fact, the Ministry of Magic cannot accurately monitor whether you use magic, but can only monitor whether there is magic near your location. If you're in a place full of wizards, the Ministry of Magic can't make a judgment, even if magic is used. Just like they can use magic at home, because their parents are wizards, as long as their parents don't tell, the Ministry of Magic will think that it is the magic used by the parents of the little wizard. Therefore, Zongxi has far more restrictions on little wizards born in Muggles than wizards from wizarding families. Because the little wizards of Muggle families basically have no wizards living nearby, as long as they cast magic, they will be monitored by the Ministry of Magic immediately. That's why, after Dobby performed magic at Uncle Harry's house, the Ministry of Magic would think that Harry violated the rules. Harry was the only wizard in the whole community, and the Ministry of Magic naturally judged that Harry had cast magic. Taking the subway to Charing Cross Road, Jerry quickly found the leaky cauldron that Professor McGonagall had brought him to before. After paying 14 galleons, he was led by his boss Tom to an old room with a unique style on the second floor. Next, he will spend 2 weeks in this room. After putting away his luggage, Jerry didn't go to Diagon Alley immediately, but went downstairs and ordered a sumptuous lunch first. After lunch, he began to stroll around Diagon Alley. Professor McGonagall was there last time, and he didn't actually visit many places. This time, he will definitely go through all the shops except Nocturne Alley. In view of the relatively high degree of danger in Nocturne Alley, he does not intend to take risks for the time being. Lacewings, leeches, sapweed, two-eared grass, pulverized bicorn horn, and fragments of African tree snakeskin. Jerry recalled the compound decoction formula he remembered in Powerful Potion in his mind, and first walked to the herbal shop in Diagon Alley. It takes about a month to make the compound soup. In order to prevent accidents, Jerry plans to make a few more pictures. Compound decoction is a very complicated and uncommon potion. It uses many kinds of herbs and is not cheap, so few people know about it and few people use it. Even though Jerry had Professor Quirrell's medicine field in his box, which saved a lot of herbs, when he bought all the remaining materials, he spent more than 200 galleons. Jerry made a preliminary estimate. If all the ingredients for a pair of compound decoction were purchased, it would cost at least 100 gold galleons. It is almost equivalent to a month's salary of an ordinary official of the Ministry of Magic. Unless there are special circumstances, no wizard would use a month's salary to buy these expensive medicinal materials to refine a potion that can only last for a few hours. Therefore, in the wizarding world, compound decoction also belongs to that kind of rare potion. After buying the potion, he went straight to the largest bookstore in Diagon Alley, Lihen Bookstore. "Sir, what book do you need to buy?" Seeing Jerry enter the door, a clerk ran up enthusiastically. Jerry didn't talk nonsense, and directly took out a bag of galleons that he had prepared a long time ago and put them on the table. "I need standard spells, level 2, standard spells, level 3, standard spells, level 4, standard spells, level 5, standard spells, level 6, Standard Spells, Level 7, Intermediate Transfiguration Guide, Advanced Transfiguration Guide. In one breath, Jerry reported all the textbooks he knew about magic, spells, and potions from grades 1 to 7. Now that you have money, why do you need to follow the steps step by step? It is better to buy all of them at once, and go back and study slowly. Although the effect of self-study is definitely not as good as that of class, but anyway, he is now a person with some foundation, and with the refreshing function, it can still be effective. Just like some high-level spells, even if the power he uses cannot meet expectations, as long as he uses it successfully, sometimes it can save lives. And not only textbooks, but also some other books that are not available in the library. He plans to buy them back and put them in the villa in the box, and read them slowly when he returns to the main world. The so-called knowledge is power, especially in the wizarding world. These magic books are the real treasures, but it's a pity that his gold galleons may not be enough. The first order is estimated to be over 1,000, and a chapter will be added first. End of this chapter. Chapter 88 Upgrade of the Singular Panel. One more, by the way, do you have any magic books that explain the disillusionment spell? After Jerry stuffed a lot of magic books into the suitcase presented by the clerk, he asked with some anticipation. Just now he roughly turned around, but he didn't see any book in the bookstore that was dedicated to explaining the illusion spell. The illusion curse is actually a kind of invisibility spell, which belongs to the advanced spell, and the learning method is recorded in the Hogwarts textbook. But this kind of spell is like apparition, it is extremely difficult, and even senior wizards may not be able to fully master it before graduation. So if you can find a magic book that specifically explains the illusion spell, it will be very helpful for learning this spell. And once there is the disillusionment charm, it will be much more convenient for Jerry to start activities in the main world in the future. Yes, there is, but there will be some trouble. Hearing this, the clerk had a hesitant look on his face. How to say? Jerry asked doubtfully. The clerk beckoned to Jerry. Sir, you can come over with me first. A moment later, on the second floor of Lihen bookstore, Jerry looked at a row of empty bookshelves in front of him, and cast a questioning look at the clerk. The clerk pointed to the bookshelf and said helplessly, a few years ago, the disillusionment charm was very popular among you young Hogwarts wizards, so our boss spent a large sum of money to order a full 200 copies of the Invisibility Book of Invisibility. As a result, you see, they are all invisible on the bookshelf. This Jerry stepped forward to touch the bookshelf speechlessly, and sure enough, he touched those invisible magic books. But when he tried to take out a book and opened it, he found that he still couldn't see anything, because every page of it was invisible. Is there no better way? For the disillusionment curse, Jerry still attaches great importance to it. The clerk scratched his head. It's not that there is no way at all, but it can only be said that drinking poison to quench thirst will not have much effect. Let's talk about it first. Jerry continued to ask. The clerk shrugged. Actually, it can be cracked with an ordinary cracking spell, but it will automatically become invisible again in less than 20 seconds at most, and it needs to be used continuously. No one will use it thousands of times just to read a book breaking the spell, so, for several years now, not a single book has been sold. Okay, I see, I want this one. Hearing this, Jerry directly took the invisible magic book in his hand and went down to the first floor. Ordinary wizards might really have to cast thousands of times to break the spell after reading this invisibility book, but he didn't use it at all. With Little Red Star refreshing his mind, he can achieve a photographic memory, and he can write down all the content in the book quickly, and then review it slowly. And even if it really takes thousands of times to break the spell, he will not give up. After all, the importance of using the illusion spell to oneself is worth taking the time to master and learn in advance. After leaving Lihen bookstore, he went to the thrift shop in Diagon Alley to see if he could find some second-hand books that Lihen bookstore couldn't buy, or magic notes. In this way, Jerry is not studying magic and refining potions in his own box world every day, or looking for various magic books, potions, or magic props that are useful to him in Diagon Alley. The more than 1,000 galleons in his hand also disappeared like running water, and in the end there were even less than 30 pieces left. This is also thanks to the fact that he sold the low-level potions that he had refined to the potion shop and earned a small amount of gold galleon subsidies, otherwise there would not be 30 gold galleons left. Although Jerry is only in the first grade, due to his hard work on potions, he often consults Snape, a potion master, and communicates with Hermione, a potion genius. His level of potion is much better than that of ordinary little wizards in the 4th and 5th grades. Especially with the blessing of improving the mind, there are very few failures when refining potions, which saves him a lot of unnecessary cost and waste, and the profit is higher than that of ordinary potion masters, so he can make a small profit, a subsidy for the family. December 24th, Christmas Eve, after sending the Christmas presents he had prepared in advance to Harry, Hermione, Ron, Malfoy Jr., Daphne and a series of other classmates through the post office in Diagon Alley, including all the professors he knew. Jerry returned to the room of the leaky cauldron, with a box in one hand and a wand in the other, and began to wait quietly for his return. As an adult who was born in China and worked for many years, Jerry certainly wouldn't just give gifts to Hermione and the others on such an important day as Christmas. If you want to give it away, you can give it all, especially the professors in the school. After the relationship is established, I want to ask a question later, and I can explain it in detail. Even Dumbledore, he sent a pair of the latest woolen socks. Moreover, if you give the professors Christmas presents, they would be ashamed not to return them to you. The presents they return will definitely be better than the ones you gave, so no matter how you calculate it, it won't be a disadvantage. The countdown begins, 10, 9, 8, 7 3, 2, 1, come back. After a whirlwind, Jerry returned to his home in Queens, New York again. Hey, it has been upgraded. Putting the box in his pocket, Jerry opened the panel and found that all the content on the panel had disappeared, leaving only a few large characters. Panel upgrade. Click to open the upgrade instructions. After this upgrade, the second small world will be opened. At the same time, the items that can be carried will not be limited to inanimate objects. The upgrade time is uncertain. During the upgrade period, the little red star will be counted normally. After reading the upgrade instructions, Jerry's eyes lit up. The second small world, that is to say, besides the wizarding world of Harry Potter, he will be able to travel to other small worlds to learn magic. Just one magic in the world of Harry Potter has already benefited him a lot. If he can learn other types of magic, his future development potential will be raised to another level. And the phrase that items that can be carried is not limited to inanimate objects made Jerry's heart beat even more. When traveling before, there was a clear regulation on the panel that he could carry inanimate things through the time travel, such as wands, broomsticks, including the sniper gun and anesthesia gun. But living objects, such as his cat Crookshanks, such as humans, such as various magical animals, etc., cannot be carried. After upgrading, this limitation will no longer exist. In other words, if he wanted, he could even bring Hermione to the main world, no problem. But what really caught his imagination was, if he becomes stronger in the future, can he bring a group of wizards to the main world through the box space, and then form a wizard army to resist the invasion of Thanos? And not only the Harry Potter world, but also other small worlds in the future, can it be done like this? Of course, the premise is that he himself must be strong enough. End of this chapter. Chapter 89 The First Use of the Imperious Curse, Part 2, Hell's Kitchen, Here I Come. In the middle of the night, Jerry rode 2,000 light wheels taken out of the box, dressed in brand new wizard robes, soared from the abandoned factory building, and went straight to the famous Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. The wizard robe he is wearing now is not an ordinary wizard robe, but a custom-made wizard robe at the Diagon Alley store at a high price. It is a wizard robe that uses alchemy to add the protective ability of the iron armor curse. With this wizard robe, the threat of some ordinary firearms to him will be greatly reduced. This is also the reason why he now dares to go to Hell's Kitchen to earn a little red star. This time he returned, he brought a lot of magic books. There is a lot of knowledge to learn, new magic spells, new potions, alchemy and so on. And all of these require the support of a large number of little red stars. But now on his panel, that little red star is gone. Therefore, he had no choice but to focus on Hell's Kitchen, where crime is so common that even the police don't dare to take care of it. Nowadays, under his frequent dispatch, there are very few crimes in Queen's district. At most, they are petty thefts, and there are not many little red stars who can be accounted for. But Hell's Kitchen is different. Countless incidents of murder, robbery, human trafficking, and flower trafficking happen there every day. It can be called a crime paradise. It is also a paradise for Little Red Star to enter the account. It's just that the criminals there are not fighting alone, but have become an industrial chain and a huge black empire. Jerry's intervention will inevitably affect the interests of these people, and will also receive a very strong counterattack. Why didn't he touch this big piece of fat before? I'm just worried that a group of people will shoot down with heavy weapons at that time, and it's not impossible to even give you a bazooka. As for now, with the iron armor curse to bless the wizard's robe that can protect against bullets, and having learned so many new spells, his strength is already much stronger than when he was abominable. Moreover, he also bought a lot of potions for detoxification, healing and other functions, and the safety was greatly improved. It's time to be bold and make a wave. Under the high-speed flight of Nimbus 2000, Jerry quickly passed through Queens, flew over the East River, and entered Manhattan. Manhattan and Queens are only separated by the East River, and at the speed of Nimbus 2000, he found the location of Hell's Kitchen in less than half an hour. It really is a sinful paradise. Flying in the air, overlooking the huge Hell's Kitchen area, Jerry sighed with a complicated expression. Pulling out his wand, he swooped down on a broomstick to a crime scene closest to him. He threw all of them petrified, and locked the 3 girls who were screaming for help in the alley and the criminals who committed atrocities in place. Then a US knife flew in and snatched all the money from the 3 criminals. Quick healing. Use the healing charm to save the next passerby who was shot, and then immobilize the criminal who shot. In this way, Jerry's figure kept appearing in the crime scenes of Hell's Kitchen, and the empty little red star finally began to gradually become full again. During this period, he also encountered black guns, but they were easily blocked by his new wizard robe. In fact, when Jerry turns on the Superman mode, as long as the opponent is not far away from the attack, or if there are a large number of people, it is still difficult to hit him with a gun. At 2:30 in the morning, Jerry left Hell's Kitchen satisfied as he watched the little red star grow. But just as he was about to cross the East River and return to Queens, he found a transaction that didn't seem very legal in a container area at the East River wharf. Quietly landed on the top of the big crane at the pier, Jerry fixed his eyes and looked down carefully. The following 2 groups of people don't look like serious people at first glance. Yes, serious people do business at the pier at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The 2 leaders were carrying boxes and muttering there, not knowing what they were talking about, and the younger brothers in the back even held guns in their hands, and they were vigilantly distributed around to prevent unrelated people from approaching. Jerry counted roughly, and the 2 gangs combined were close to 40 people, and each of them had a gun in his hand, and a few of them were holding rifles. This is arresting contraband transactions. I wonder if there are any little red stars. Touching his chin, Jerry fell into a little hesitation. There are more than 40 gun-wielding criminals who are not easy to mess with at first sight, and they are not comparable to ordinary street gangsters. If there is no little red star, he actually doesn't want to go down and take this risk. However, this hesitation only hovered in his mind for a few seconds before completely disappearing. Because he saw the leaders of the 2 parties below each open their boxes, and one of the boxes was actually full of beautiful knives. Don't look at him fighting crime now, and he has saved a lot of dollars, but the sum can be tens of thousands of dollars at most, because the average robber really doesn't have much cash in his hands, and as a superhero, he doesn't have much cash. Fortunately, how much in return after saving people? However, the US knife in the entire suitcase below is estimated to be at least a small million. This guy is illegal anyway, so it's a waste if he doesn't take it, and maybe there are little red stars in this kind of behavior. After all, if another box of white noodles is leaked out, it will harm many people. Having made a decision, Jerry didn't rush down immediately. There were so many people with guns, so he went straight down to find Beng. The iron armor curse can fire bullets, but it is not omnipotent. The wizard's robe can protect the body but not the head. Besides, there is no need for that. Of course, this kind of situation is the safest and most efficient for a surprise attack. Carefully raised the height, walked around behind a container, threw the Nimbus 2000 into the small box, and Jerry sneaked past cautiously holding the wand. Out of body, a muscular white man with a fierce face was looking around vigilantly with a pistol when he suddenly felt a bright light flash in front of his eyes. Immediately afterwards, he felt his brain go blank, and then a strong sense of happiness began to fill his heart. Go. Walk over slowly, and quietly shoot the guy who is dealing with your boss a few times. A very gentle and beautiful voice appeared in his heart. Although he felt that it was wrong to do so, the strong sense of happiness still made him involuntarily follow the instructions in the voice. He slowly left his post and walked towards the center of the transaction with a smirk on his face. Mara, what's the matter? What did you find out? What are you going to do? The boss of the strong white man saw his subordinates approaching and thought something was wrong, and immediately frowned. However, the strong white man ignored him, but raised his gun with a happy face and shot towards the opposite boss. Bang! 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 The boss on the opposite side obviously didn't expect that the partner who had been trading for several years would be blackmailed and shot dead on the spot by a strong white man. The scene froze for a second, and then the side who was shot to kill the boss, cursed angrily and aimed their guns at the strong white man and the boss here, and sent them back to the west with a shuttle of bullets. The first order has already reached 1,200, thank you for your support, there will be a chapter at noon, and another chapter will be added in the evening. End of this chapter. Chapter 90 Black magic is really easy to use against ordinary people. Seeing the two sides fighting at the pier, Jerry nodded in satisfaction. What he cast just now was the Imperious Curse learned from Quirrell's notes. Although he was not particularly proficient, it was obviously more than enough to deal with ordinary people. This time back, his spell reserve has improved a lot, so sometimes, it is not necessary to fight with those who have modern weapons and flexibly apply spells with different effects, but it is more efficient. Just like now, he doesn't need to make a move anymore, he just needs to watch the two gangs fighting from afar. Most of the magical lethality in the world of Harry Potter is not as good as modern weapons under high technology. However, some miraculous effects produced by magic cannot be achieved by many modern high-tech, and it is difficult to guard against, or even impossible to guard against. All fly. Just when the two gangs shot at each other with red eyes because the boss was killed, the two boxes that had fallen in the middle flew straight towards a certain container. It was Jerry who cast the summoning spell. Throwing the two suitcases directly into the small box, seeing that the number of little red stars had indeed increased a bit, he ignored those fighting people and rode away on the Nimbus 2000. Simple killing, no matter whether it is a good person or a bad person, cannot get a little red star. Only by preventing crimes that are happening and doing good deeds can you get a little red star. Now that the money and things are in hand, why stay here? Going back to the abandoned warehouse, throwing everything into boxes, Jerry sneaks back home. He hasn't learned the illusion curse yet, but when he learns the illusion curse, next time he won't have to go in and out of the warehouse every time, and he can fly home invisibly. There are textbooks for senior grades, and the Invisibility Book of Invisibility, I believe this time should not be too long. Early the next morning, after breakfast, Jerry sent his younger sister Aisha to the school bus to the elementary school. After the summer vacation, he and Aisha would naturally go to school. It's just that Aisha is still a primary school student, and he has become a middle school student gloriously from today. Therefore, his school is naturally no longer the previous elementary school, but another middle school. His middle school is a public middle school, a very ordinary middle school. The main feature is that it is far away from his previous elementary school. Students who attended the same school before will most likely not choose this school. At that time, Haas planned to send him to a private middle school. Although the tuition fees of private middle schools were much more expensive, they were indeed better than public middle schools, but Jerry refused. Because he wanted to earn a little red star, he performed super well in all aspects, so that all the teachers and classmates in the school knew him, and he was a real man of the hour. Now that little red star, he no longer cares about it, so naturally he doesn't need to express himself like before. And now, he is planning to use compound soup to completely remove himself from the eyes of SHIELD. After that, he will naturally be more low-key. Jerry checked this public middle school and found that it is very average in all aspects, and the management is also very lax, which is very suitable for his current situation. Aisha, I'm not here. You have to study hard at school and listen to the teacher. If anyone dares to bully you, you must tell me when you come back. Before sending Aisha to the school bus, Jerry explained one by one with some worries. Big brother, I don't want to be separated from you, woo woo woo. Aisha pursed her mouth, looking reluctant. Jerry comforted a little moved, it's okay, when you go to middle school next year, you will go to the same school as big brother. Seeing Elsa getting on the bus and the school bus starting, Jerry was about to turn around and leave when his ears moved suddenly and the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. In the morning, because he prepared the compound decoction in the box space, his Superman mode has not been released, so the hearing of his ears is much stronger than normal. Just now he faintly heard Aisha's cheers from the window of the school bus that had started. Okay, I finally got rid of the control of the demon Jerry, the era that belongs to me, Queen Elsa, is finally coming, ha. 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 It seems that she is a little strict at ordinary times. Jerry shook his head with a smile, and waved to a taxi with his school bag on his back. Due to the learning experience in his previous life, it is inevitable that Jerry will use Hogwarts' unique education method when guiding Aisha in the learning process. Although at home, he has tried not to care about Aisha's studies, but at school, he still keeps a close eye on Aisha, which is probably why Aisha feels that she and Jerry are not in the same school. Be happy. Speaking of it, Jerry feels that he has surpassed most of the parents in this country in terms of watching Aisha study. Aisha's math can still fail every exam, which is also good enough. Perhaps, it is really not good at a certain aspect by nature, and there is no need to work hard. If you are born good at a certain aspect, even if you don't work hard, you can still achieve a lot. The phrase choice is greater than effort seems to have its own truth. Jerry, who was not short of money, took a taxi for more than half an hour, and finally came to bring his new middle school. In the beginning of the school season, countless young boys and girls full of youthful atmosphere walked into the gate of the school. They dressed in different styles, but almost all of them wore what they thought was the trendiest clothes, because at this age they all wanted to be the prettiest and trendiest boy in school. Different from middle schools in Hogwarts, students with good grades are the focus. Here, nerds with good grades but rusticity will be despised by most people and unable to make friends. The popular ones are those who seem to be trendy, versatile, or outstanding in various activities. Perhaps it is because the children here are exposed to the internet earlier and are generally more mature than children of the same age in Hogwarts. On the contrary, it is not so easy to concentrate on studying. Among the very trendy middle school students, Jerry is the one with very ordinary clothes. He was wearing the most common baggy t-shirt and jeans, covered his handsome face with a hat, and deliberately put on a pair of thick black-rimmed glasses without prescription. He was not very tall either. I don't know if it's because he has practiced martial arts since he was a child, or it's because of his age. Jerry's height is not outstanding for his age. Almost. In this regard, Jerry has nothing to do, but he thinks it should be mainly a matter of age. Under normal circumstances, girls develop earlier and boys develop later. So at the same age of 11, Hermione developed faster, and he estimated that it would take another 2 years for her height to increase. Haas once said that the height of Jerry's biological father and mother is very outstanding, and the real handsome men and beautiful women belong to it. It doesn't make sense that he only inherits his looks, not his height. End of this chapter. Chapter 91 Jerry's Middle School Life, Part 4. In fact, when Jerry entered the school, he realized that the middle school in this country is still very different from the junior high school in his previous life. This kind of cultural difference was not very noticeable in elementary school, but it became very obvious after entering middle school. He still remembers that when he was in junior high school in his previous life, outside the school, he often saw many junior high school classmates fighting in groups. The one time he was more impressed, there were hundreds of people, but inside the school, it was another look. Because the teachers at that time were not good at fault, such as the 4 great demon kings, the 6 great demon kings, Mijua Shitai, etc. They are definitely not comparable to the current teachers. Behaviors such as hair dyeing, long hair, smoking, mischief in class, and falling in love, if discovered, will definitely have a good end. He vaguely remembered that when he was in math class, he could hear the needle drop. As long as the math teacher walked into the teacher, all the noise in the classroom would disappear without a trace. I vaguely remember a classmate who was very popular outside, because he secretly smoked behind the teaching building after class, was discovered by the bald demon king, shouted 13 times in public, and finally kicked to the ground. The two-legged scene. Of course, it is rare now. All kinds of perms, curly hair, earrings, and exotic clothes seem to be very commonplace in this middle school. Even when Jerry was still going upstairs, he found 2 13 and 14-year-old children hugging and kissing in the corner. After the key point was seen by Jerry, the other party didn't feel anything at all, as if he was used to it. It may also be because of the school. Some good private middle schools, it is estimated that the control in this regard will be stricter. In fact, he quite likes this situation, because it is exactly what he needs. The looser the school management is, the more time he has to do his own things. I found the classroom on the notice, chose a seat in the back corner and sat down. Soon, the bell rang and the first class began. My name is Jerry Kamen, I'm 11 years old, I have hobbies, a lot, dreams for the future, a lot. In the self-introduction of the first class, Jerry, who was sitting in the corner of the back row, got up and said a few words in a very uncharacteristic manner, and then sat down. The eyes of the teachers and classmates in the classroom only stayed on him for a few seconds before moving on to the next one. Expel Muggles. At this time, Jerry quietly took out his wand, lightly tapped it on his desk, and then took out the magic book from the box and began to read it. The Muggle Repelling Curse, a magic spell commonly used by wizards newly learned by Jerry, is not very difficult, but the specific effect depends on the level of the wizard. The Muggle Repelling Curse doesn't really expel Muggles, it just makes a certain place where the spell is applied, not to be noticed by Muggles, or it can make Muggles ignore that place involuntarily. It is more like a super psychological suggestion of a group. It was like the leaky cauldron. Obviously he was caught between the bookstore and the record company, but passers-by were subconsciously influenced and ignored it. Only by being specially reminded by the wizard and breaking the psychological hint, can one be able to see it. Now Jerry cast a Muggle repelling spell on a small area near his desk, so that the teacher and all the students in the class would subconsciously ignore where he was. In this way, no matter what he does here, as long as the movement is not too loud, it will not attract attention. Of course, if the teacher asked his name to ask questions, he would still be found. However, when reading the magic book, Jerry will turn on the refreshing function. As long as the teacher calls his name, he can immediately respond in advance, and there is no problem. Moreover, public schools are not as strict as private schools. It is relatively rare to catch students asking questions, and everyone is more free in class. On the first day of class, there is nothing too important. The main thing is to introduce yourself and get to know your classmates. On this day, Jerry memorized the names of all his teachers and classmates, but he didn't make a friend, because he spent all his time researching the compound soup formula and the illusion spell. This is what he desperately needs right now. The first day of middle school campus life passed very peacefully in this way. That's how it should have been. However, when the two classes joined together for physical education class in the last period, there was still an accident of Yi Diu Diu. Their physical education teacher, a middle-aged white man who is short and fat, played a small game called Gladiator before class in order to make everyone blend in happily in the first class. The rules are very simple. The boys in the two classes are divided into two teams to snatch the red flag planted on the other side of the lawn. During the process, they can use any means to stop the other team members. The first class to send the red flag to the teacher will win the prize. Victory. The girls in the class cheer for the boys in the class as cheerleaders. In fact, there is nothing to do here. Jerry felt that he would just fool around when the time came, and it passed. However, since it was the first day for everyone to attend class, the students in their own class still couldn't recognize them all. In order to distinguish the members of the two teams, the physical education teacher asked one of the classes to take off their t-shirts and be naked. And Jerry's class is the class that was selected to take off his shirt. The result was obvious. The moment Jerry took off his shirt, he had become the focus of all the students in the playground, including their physical education teacher, who were stunned. Children in this period are either thin or obese. Like Jerry, who has 8-pack abs and a body like steel and iron, it is a bit too conspicuous. In particular, an 8th grade girl from a certain campus newspaper took photos of Jerry taking off his shirt not far away. The next day, the picture of his muscular body was on the headlines of the campus newspaper, and he instantly became the man of the school. I made a low-key plan at the beginning, but on the first day of school, I declared complete bankruptcy. There is no way, who made him unable to cast spells without a staff now, otherwise he would have given the teacher an imperious curse, and this situation would not have happened. The main reason is that everyone changed into special sports t-shirts and shorts in physical education class, and the wand and box were not easy to carry, so he put them in the student-only locker before class. I didn't expect such a moth to appear in a mere physical education class. This also made Jerry vigilant, that is, no matter how safe the environment is, the wand in his hand must never leave his body, because without the wand, he is just an ordinary child with a slightly stronger body. Fortunately, in the end, he thought about it carefully, and the problem wasn't too big. The low key was just to reduce the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D., but as long as he successfully refined the compound decoction, everything would be easy to solve. The first order is 1,300, which is better than I expected. Thank you for your support, thank you for your subscriptions, rewards, and tickets. From now until the end of the month, I will try my best to keep 4 updates. End of this chapter. Chapter 92 Identity Exposed. One more, 1 month after school started, after saying goodnight to Haas and Elsa, Jerry closed the door of the room, cast a locking spell, and entered his box space. When he came to the potions laboratory in the small villa, he checked the color of the soup in the cauldron, and his face couldn't help showing a gleam of joy. It seems that this is almost the case. From the return to the present, the compound soup has been boiled for a whole month, and today is finally the time to finish it. Put the last lacewing worm into the soup. The whole soup was as thick as syrup. A large bubble suddenly appeared, and it rolled in the crucible non-stop. Picking up the wand and inputting magic power at the soup, and then putting the hair from Hermione into the boiling soup instantly turned into a nice pink color. Advanced Transfiguration Potion, Polyjuice Potion, it's done. Looking at the pink soup, Jerry happily packed it in 4 small bottles in batches. Every dose in the bottle here would allow him to transform into Hermione for an hour. Polyjuice Potion, a potion that transforms the drinker into another human being. It can turn the drinker into a human being of any age and S**X, but it cannot turn a person into an animal, nor can it make a non-human or semi-human deformation, such as Hagrid. Due to the addition of the transformed person's hair, the transformed body is exactly the same as the transformed person's body. The color and taste of the compound decoction are also different depending on the shape-shifting person. Some are khaki, some are dark brown, some are golden yellow, some are pink, some are very bad, some taste mediocre, and some taste very good. It is said that it is related to the purity of the mind of the person being transformed, but it is only a guess and has no actual basis. Because no one will admit their psychological darkness. Before Jerry went out, he always wore a large wizard robe, a wizard hat and a mask on his head, so outsiders couldn't see what he looked like at all. Can only be judged by height or voice. And Hermione's height was similar to his now, and although her voice was different, it couldn't help him, a small voice-changing spell could solve it. So as long as the operation is good, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s investigation of his true identity will be very likely to be led astray again. At the same time, the Washington headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Trickerved Wing building. Agent Hill put a stack of documents on Nick Fury's desk. Director, according to the current investigation by our logistics agents, we have basically determined the true identity of the wizard with a high probability, and he is among these children. Lu Hui, Wang Gang, Jerry Carmen, Li Hu, Zhao Xiaogu. Nick Fury took the document, glanced at it roughly, and then took out the document of Jerry Carmen, a little surprised and said, "It's not that the result of the previous investigation is Chinese, why is there an exception? Actually, in all our investigations, this kid named Jerry Carmen is actually the most likely." Hill expressed his judgment. Although Jerry did not reveal his appearance from the beginning to the end, S.H.I.E.L.D., as the top international secret service organization, has so much energy and so many elite talents in various industries. As long as you are willing to spend time and increase investment, it is not impossible to find clues about Jerry. I didn't find out Jerry's information before, just because it was because K. Fury didn't pay much attention to Jerry, and more resources were used in other aspects. At this time, Jerry showed his unique healing talent and powerful auxiliary ability. Of course, Nick Fury also increased the intensity of the investigation. Therefore, as the person in charge of this matter, Agent Hill was also able to mobilize more agents to assist in a large number of screenings. By narrowing down the scope and eliminating one by one, she quickly locked in a few more eligible children, and the most prominent of them was this one named Jerry Carmen. At the beginning, he was excluded because he was not of Chinese descent, until an agent carefully discovered that this child seemed to be very proficient in Chinese cuisine, so it was very likely that he could also speak Chinese. The most important thing is that this child is too good in all aspects, and his goodness has exceeded the normal range, which has to make Hill doubt him. After all, the height matches, the home address is not far from the warehouse, and the child is different from ordinary people. It is hard not to think of him as the wizard who knows magic. After listening to Hill's report, Nick nodded. He still has great trust in Hill's intelligence and judgment ability, and judging from his judgment, this child named Jerry Carmen is indeed very suspicious. Go to New York with me tomorrow, I want to meet him in person, and ask him for a favor by the way. About Tony Stark. Hill had clearly guessed something. Natasha reported that Tony's poisoning situation is not optimistic. Our current treatment methods cannot completely recover him, so I plan to see if there is any way for this wizard, even if the secrets of the things left by Mr. Howard are solved, it is not known whether they will definitely solve Tony's problems, so we must try other methods. Nick Fury sighed. Tony, as one of the founders of SHIELD, the son of Howard Stark, is himself a very important general in the Avengers plan he valued. Except for some flaws in its temper and character. But it is undeniable that even if he is not suitable to be an Avenger, his technical support and guidance alone can already play a very important role in SHIELD. Leaving the box space, Jerry held the broomstick, pointed his wand at himself, and whispered a spell, without a trace. A blue magic light flashed, and Jerry and Nimbus 2000 disappeared in the room at the same time. After a month, through his hard work, he finally mastered the disillusionment curse, a spell that only senior wizards can master. So now he no longer has to sneak into the warehouse hard every time, and then enter and exit from the warehouse. He can directly put on the illusion charm and fly in and out from the window of his room. Although at his level, the invisible state cannot be maintained for a long time, but it is enough. With the help of the illusion spell, Jerry soon came to the sky above Hell's Kitchen, and began to fight criminals on a daily basis to earn a job as a Little Red Star. However, just as his disillusionment spell disappeared and he was flying around in the sky to solve one crime after another, a strong man in a black suit was watching him with a telescope on the roof of a certain building. The mission target has appeared, ready to start working, be sure to solve him once. End of this chapter. Chapter 93 Premeditated Attack, Part 2, Captain, don't worry, a kid with a bit of superpower really thinks how powerful he is. Another strong man took out a tracking rocket launcher from the box, and began to debug it skillfully. The leading man in a suit shook his head, don't be careless. Although the target is a child, the opponent's ability is very strange. If he gets close to him, we will be in trouble, and as far as the current situation is concerned, it is difficult for ordinary bullets to cause damage to him. Don't worry, I don't believe he can resist my rocket. The strong man operating the tracking rocket launcher took out a rocket and loaded it. The most important thing is to hit it. Has the drone been released? The leading strong man nodded, and asked a young man on the other side. Captain, let him out, and his location has been tracked. Dana, after a while the opponent is hit by the rocket, you immediately supplement the attack, make sure to kill him. The leading strong man turned his head to look at the beautiful red-haired woman who was installing a heavy sniper rifle. After finishing this order, we can retire. The red-haired woman winked at the leading strong man, don't worry, this is a Barrett heavy-duty sniper rifle, and it uses a 1.27 cm armor-piercing bullet. Even if it is a steel plate, I can blast it from 1,000 meters away. He can block ordinary bullets, and he can also block my armor-piercing bullets. After she finished speaking, she licked her mouth again, and murmured pervertedly, I like to see the scene where the brains burst open the most. I don't know if children's brains look better. The leading brawny man in a suit seemed to be commonplace, and he didn't say much, but ordered the young man who controlled the drone to closely track the good wizard's flight. Meanwhile, below Hell's Kitchen, a minivan was speeding down the street. Inside, a young woman in her 20s, while holding up her camera, urgently urged the driver in front of her, I just saw Mr. Wizard flying in the direction of 39th Street, hurry up, drive faster, otherwise we won't be able to take pictures today. The driver couldn't help but rolled his eyes, Miss Lucy, he is flying in the sky, and his direction is erratic. I can't catch up with him no matter how fast I drive on the ground. I think it's better to find a place with higher terrain, maybe I can get some photos. No, that's too blurry. I want to take a close-up shot, preferably a close-up shot of a wizard casting magic to fight criminals. The young woman holding the camera poked her head out to look in the air before replying loudly to the driver. The young woman's name is Lucy, and she is the reporter that Jerry rescued when he first started fighting criminals. Originally, she was just an unknown low-level reporter, and her daily job was to interview some snacks and gourmet shops on the street. Until she met Jerry and saw the magic with her own eyes, she became interested in Jerry uncontrollably. She believes that as long as she puts all her energy on Jerry, she will be able to get a lot of information and be promoted to a first-class reporter. In fact, this is indeed the case. When Jerry was not popular at first, he could not see it, but since Jerry's reputation as a wizard became famous throughout New York, any news related to him will attract the attention of the general public. This also made her stay in Jerry near Queens at the beginning, and took a lot of photos of Jerry, and her career in the company has risen, especially when she personally reported the fire incident. So, when she knew that Jerry often appeared in Hell's Kitchen to fight criminals, she would come to Hell's Kitchen almost every night just to take a few good photos. But right now, it's hard. Because this Mr. Wizard, every time he subdues the criminal, he is very fast, basically appearing from a high altitude suddenly, and then flies away after using a few magic spells to solve it. Even if the crime happened not far from them, by the time they drove past, everything would have been settled. Therefore, whether it was Lucy or other reporters with the same thoughts, it was difficult to clearly take high-definition pictures of wizards subduing criminals. All petrified. Jerry had just finished dealing with a robber, and flew into the air on a broomstick, when he suddenly frowned, a feeling of being watched emerged in his heart. Turning the broom, he immediately found 2 drones not far from him and the camera on the drone. Is it S.H.I.E.L.D. again? It doesn't look like it. Compared with the surveillance of drones sent by S.H.I.E.L.D. last time, Jerry's sixth sense can clearly feel a strong sense of malice in this surveillance. Torn apart. With a wave of the magic wand, one drone was immediately dismembered on the spot, but before he could cast a second spell, another drone had already fled towards the west. Want to run? Jerry accelerated, and the Nimbus 2000 immediately broke through the air and chased after the fleeing drone. Although the speed of the drone is fast, the speed of the Nimbus 2000 is not slow, close to the maximum speed of 200 km per hour, Jerry quickly pulled the distance between him and the drone. Torn apart. With a flick of the wand, a blue light instantly exploded the drone into a pile of scrap metal. But at this moment, Jerry, who was in Superman mode, suddenly felt a very strong sense of crisis in his heart. Not good. With an exclamation, he saw a rocket flying straight in his direction from the top of the building in front of him. The wizard's robe with the iron armor curse can resist ordinary bullet attacks, but it is impossible to predict whether it can resist rocket attacks. But Jerry thinks that it is better not to take risks if possible. You must know that although the iron armor curse is an extremely powerful defensive spell, it is also an advanced spell, including that he is now working hard to learn this spell. However, the power of the iron armor curse is not only the spell itself, but more importantly, the strength of the wizard. The iron armor curse used by Dumbledore and the iron armor curse used by first-year wizards are definitely not at the same level. It is like the death-defying curse known as the death-defying curse. If the wizard who casts the spell is too weak, it cannot be fatal. Effect. It was recorded in Quirrell's notes that if the wizard's strength is too weak, even if he successfully releases the killing curse, it will only cause some nosebleeds at most. And the wizard robe with the iron armor curse that he ordered at a high price can only be regarded as mediocre. Because the shop for wizard robes originally did not sell wizard robes containing the iron armor curse, it was because he paid a high price that the boss tried to make one for him. It is unrealistic to expect the owner of the wizard robe shop to be a master of the iron armor curse, and he can barely cast it. And through learning the basics of alchemy during this period of time, he also knew that enchanted alchemy products similar to this kind of defensive spells were actually not as effective as those cast by wizards themselves. End of this chapter. Chapter 94 The Defense of the Iron Armor Curse, Third Watch. Hastily turning the direction of the broomstick, Jerry made a difficult dodge and successfully dodged the rocket attack. However, after dodging, his complexion did not improve, because the rocket made a circle in mid-air, and unexpectedly hit him again. Fack, can you still track it? After swearing, Jerry immediately waved his wand and said loudly to the rocket that rushed towards him again, all fixed. A flash of light flashed in front of the wand, and the rocket that was flying towards it landed in the air after entering the field of light. The Freezing Curse, a very special spell that appears in Wizard's second-grade spell textbooks. Unlike the Sleeping spell, which targets the spirit, the Body Binding spell targets the physical body, and can only attack one person at a time. The Freezing spell is a special spell for ranged attacks. When the spell is released, as long as the individual is covered by the magic light, under the will of the wizard, it will be like being stopped by time, unable to move anymore. However, wizards generally rarely use this spell in battle. Because this spell has a disadvantage, that is, it is not very effective for wizards, humans, or slightly larger creatures. It is more suitable for dealing with some small creatures, such as Cornish elves and the like. Of course, what Jerry values most is not this, but this spell has a very unique characteristic, that is, it can work on Muggle products, or non-living things. This is something that sleeping spells and body binding spells cannot do. For example, if an alarm suddenly goes off, it won't work if you cast Sleeping Curse and Body Binding Curse on it, it will still go off. But if you cast a freezing spell on him, then it will stop immediately. Likewise, if you cast a freezing spell on a rocket coming towards you, it will also stop functioning immediately and be held in mid-air. Jerry knows that living in the Marvel world, he will have to face this high-tech and powerful weapon sooner or later, especially now that he is still in the dangerous Hell's Kitchen, a paradise for criminals. Therefore, during this period of time, he has also been looking for some magic spells that can deal with high-tech weapons. This freezing spell is the best spell he can find to deal with high-tech weapons. The key is the second-year spell, and the difficulty is not particularly difficult. What happened? On the roof of the building, seeing that the rocket had actually stopped in front of Jerry, without making another move, the leading burly man in a suit immediately exclaimed. He knew that the opponent had some weird abilities, but as one of the world's top mercenary squads, they had seen people with similar superpowers before. In fact, in their view, as long as they figure out their ability characteristics, the degree of danger is not much stronger than that of ordinary people. Because they have not received any special training at all, they are essentially like a child with a gun. If you want to kill them, as long as it is a bullet or a rocket, you can report it. This is also one of the reasons why they dared to take this order after knowing the abilities of wizards. However, this ability to fix rockets in place out of thin air has never happened before in their research on wizard battle videos, so they were so surprised. Dana, make up the seat. Got it, watch me blow his head off. The red-haired woman locked the sniper rifle between Jerry's eyebrows in mid-air, and pulled the trigger confidently. A terrifying bang sounded, and the armor-piercing projectile, which was longer and thicker than a finger, shot straight at Jerry's eyebrows at a speed of nearly a kilometer per second. At this time, Jerry also felt the fatal warning from the sixth sense again. The magic power surged instantly, and the magic wand touched the wizard robe on his body, opening the second defense of the iron armor curse. Jerry customized this wizard robe with the iron armor curse, which is divided into two defense modes. The first is that the iron armor curse covers the wizard robe itself, just like having a super body armor. The advantage is that almost the entire body can be protected. The disadvantage is that the neck and head above the wizard robe are completely impossible. Defensive. The second is that Jerry actively activates it with his wand, then the iron armor charm attached to the wizard robe will turn into a translucent protective shield like a normal cast, covering the whole side of Jerry's body. The advantage is that attacks from one direction can be fully protected, and the disadvantage is that attacks from the other three directions are completely unprotected. Just as the translucent iron armor shield was raised, an armor-piercing projectile appeared less than 1 meter away from Jerry's brow. If he had been slower just now, his head might have exploded like a watermelon. Wizards have strong vitality, missing arms and legs, or even half of their body is cut. As long as they are treated in time, they can be healed back. But if the head is completely blown open, there is nothing to do but die. Or you can choose not to die and turn into a ghost directly, but that is not a good thing, otherwise there would not be so many wizards who would not choose to become ghosts after death. Unexpectedly, the moment the armor-piercing projectile came into contact with the iron armor curse, it was completely blocked by the iron armor curse's translucent shield. The advanced defense spell is worthy of being an advanced defense spell. Although this is a castrated version, not as powerful as that released by the wizard, it still has a perfect defense effect against this purely physical armor-piercing projectile. Jerry still underestimated the wizard's magic. The reason why magic is called magic is that it can no longer be explained by science in some places. Armor-piercing projectiles are powerful, but the wizard's advanced defensive magic is not just for nothing. You know, the Iron Armor Curse is a high-level defensive spell that can prevent almost most spells except the Killing Curse. Seeing that the armor-piercing projectile was fixed outside the protective cover of the Iron Armor Curse, Jerry's heart moved, and he immediately directed the broomstick to drag him backwards and flew backwards, making a look that although the armor-piercing projectile was blocked, he was beaten by the kinetic energy of the armor-piercing projectile. The appearance of flying out. Crashing into a closed clothing store, smashing over a pile of hangers, Jerry buried himself and his broom in a pile of clothes. And just a few seconds after his body was buried in the pile of clothes, he quickly took out the box inside the wizard robe, took out a compound decoction and secretly poured it into his mouth. The faint sweetness like strawberries bloomed in his taste buds. Before he could savor it carefully, his internal organs immediately began to churn, and a burning feeling spread from his stomach to his whole body, reaching his fingers and toes. Immediately afterwards, there was a terrible feeling of melting, as if his skin was bubbling like hot wax, and he couldn't help but gasp in the pile of clothes. End of this chapter. Chapter 95, The Wizard is a Girl, 4th update. After a while, when the body was completely transformed successfully, Jerry resolutely felt that his familiar body suddenly became very strange. The short brown hair started to grow longer, thicker and messy. The upper body swelled slightly, and all the steel-like muscles he had trained disappeared at this time, and the powerful physical strength that did not belong to adults had become similar to that of ordinary little girls. As for the lower body, that's even more difficult to describe in words. In short, Jerry under the pile of clothes now has completely changed into Hermione's appearance. Pushing away the clothes covering his body, instead of picking up the hat and mask that fell into the pile of clothes, he pretended to be angry and rushed out of the clothes store on a broomstick, and came into the air again. Just now, because Jerry was blown away, the freezing curse naturally disappeared, and the rocket suspended by the freezing curse also exploded in mid-air, awakening the sleeping residents and the reporters squatting on the street. Especially the most persistent Lucy, because she has been chasing Jerry's trajectory, so she is not far from the explosion. Before the explosion, she saw Jerry in the air from a distance, as if he had been hit by something and fell down, and immediately made the driver drive towards the street where Jerry fell. And when Jerry rushed out of the clothing store on the Nimbus 2000, Lucy's car just arrived at the door of the clothing store. Crack! As soon as the flashlight came on, Lucy took a clear picture of Jerry riding a broom just into the sky, without a wizard hat, and with long hair scattered sideways. Crack, click, click. After Jerry's figure completely disappeared into the air, Lucy whispered with bright eyes, I really didn't expect that the wizard turned out to be a girl. This is big news, and it will be the headline tomorrow. That's right, Lucy thought for a while. Every time a wizard appeared, he would wear a mask with only 2 eyes exposed, and wear a wide wizard robe, so it was impossible to tell whether it was a boy or a girl. It's just that most people subconsciously regard the wizard as a boy. And he never denied it. Regarding the photo-taking behavior of the female reporter just now, Jerry silently gave a thumbs up. He knew that there were many reporters lurking in Hell's Kitchen, and they were going to secretly take some photos and videos of him fighting crime, so he just decided to use the compound soup potion to transform. He didn't expect to be slapped with such a face when he just came out, which was exactly what he wanted. In fact, even if these reporters didn't take pictures of him at this time, I believe that the satellites in the sky of SHIELD can still take pictures of him. Not only do they look different, but even their genders are different. Will SHIELD still doubt his identity as a wizard? From today onwards, people all over the world know that the wizard is a girl, and know what the wizard looks like. At least in a short period of time, no one will doubt his identity again. However, this is not a long-term solution. After all, the compound medicine can only last for an hour, and as he ages, his masculine features will become more and more obvious. But it doesn't matter, he just needs to hide it for a few years. Because his strength will only become stronger and stronger, and when he becomes stronger to a certain extent, naturally there is no need to hide anything. Moreover, Hermione wasn't fabricated by him out of thin air. It's not impossible to take Hermione to the main world for a stroll in the future. The next step is to deal with those guys who dared to attack me. Riding a broomstick, Jerry didn't rise too high, but chose to quickly shuttle between the buildings below, and rushed towards the building that attacked him just now. At this time, it is actually safer for him to use the disillusionment curse, but he still doesn't want others to know about his ability to be invisible. And the other party is just a few muggles. Even without the disillusionment charm, he can easily solve it. Modern weapons can indeed pose danger to wizards, but that refers to sneak attacks. Once a wizard finds out, it will be too difficult to kill a wizard with guns. In particular, Jerry is not an ordinary wizard. He is not ignorant of modern weapons like other wizards. He knows how to avoid danger and deal with opponents more easily. What a monster, even armor-piercing bullets can't penetrate his layer of defense. The leading burly man in a suit used binoculars to see Jerry riding a broom, with his hat and mask falling off, and his body intact. He rushed out again, and couldn't help frowning. However, he did not give up. Although the opponent's defense was strong, it was not invincible. First of all, since the opponent tried his best to prevent the rocket from exploding, it meant that the rocket was still a threat to him, and the armor-piercing bullet did not break through the opponent's defense, and smashed the opponent into the room below. So as long as they cooperate well, it is not impossible to kill each other. Dana. He has been evading, and there is a building in front of him, so it is difficult for me to aim at him. But when he is within 100 meters, without the obstruction of the building, I can definitely hit him with my skills. The red-haired woman kept moving the sniper rifle, trying to target the erratic Jerry. Okay, after a while Dana hits the target, you use the rocket launcher to chase after it, and you use the drone to self-destruct and explode to catch up. Hearing the answer from the woman in red, the leading burly man in a suit turned his head and said something to the burly man carrying the bazooka, and then gave orders to the young man who was manipulating other drones. Both of them nodded. However, just as Jerry passed through many tall buildings, within 100 meters of them, and there was no more shelter, he suddenly waved his magic wand, and a cloud of smoke enveloped him. Xiaomian, you still want to meow me? Looking at the 4 people on the roof of the building in front, Jerry sneered, and after releasing the smoke curse, he waved his wand again, bright as day. Suddenly, in the dark night, dazzling rays of light like small suns suddenly shot out from the smoke, and the 4 people who were staring at the smoke screen on the spot subconsciously closed their eyes. An advanced spell that is as bright as daylight and fluorescently flashes, it can emit a dazzling light similar to the sun. The ball in Jerry's current space box, floating in the air like the sun, was created by using alchemy combined with the magic of bright as day. All petrified. Taking advantage of the moment when all 4 of them closed their eyes, Jerry rushed out of the smoke screen, turned around to the side of the 4 of them, waved his wand, and threw a full-body binding spell on the strong man with the bazooka. The sniper rifle can't pierce his iron armor curse, but the bazooka is hard to say, so the most important thing is to deal with the most threatening bazooka first. End of this chapter. Chapter 96 Fighting on the Roof, Part 1, Boom. Just when Jerry finished dealing with the strong man carrying the bazooka, a strong thrust came from behind him, which directly pushed him with his broomstick to the sky above the roof of the building where the 4 of them were. It turned out to be the young man who controlled the drone. After realizing it, he took the opportunity to remotely control the drone and blew himself up behind Jerry. However, fortunately, it was not very powerful and was protected by a wizard's robe. Jerry's thick hair was only burned off a little, but he didn't suffer any injuries. At the same time, the red-haired woman was also a high-tech sniper with a tacit understanding, and shot Jerry who was blown towards him. Seeing that the armor-piercing projectile was about to go out and penetrate Jerry's chest, he realized that he had predicted the red-haired woman's sniper at some point in advance, and dodged by hooking his feet on the broom. In Superman mode, although the current body is Hermione's body, which is much worse in all aspects, but the 5 senses are still raised to the limit. Although the red-haired girl's sniping movement was quick, he was still caught by him. All petrified. Jerry, who fell on the broom, saw that the woman in red had only paused for a second after she missed a shot, and immediately turned the gun to himself, and quickly threw the same full-body binding spell over. After getting rid of the powerful sniper, Jerry swayed and sat on the broom again, ready to kill the remaining 2, but found that the 2 were heading straight towards the iron gate on the roof regardless of their trapped companions. Rushed over. Want to run? At this point, how could he let the other party escape, so the flying broom accelerated and came to the iron gate ahead of time, and then jumped off the broom, directly blocking the exit passage on the roof. If the 2 sneaked into the building through the iron gate, he might not be able to find the trace of the 2. Seeing Jerry jumping off the broom, the burly man in the suit and the thin young man exchanged glances, revealing a tricky smile. It turned out that the 2 didn't want to escape, but just wanted to lure Jerry down from the sky. After all, if Jerry was always in the air, the 2 of them would have no way to defeat him. Only by luring him down, can it be possible to kill the target by close combat. The thin young man pulled out his guns and rolled over to hide behind the water tank on the roof, while the strong man in the suit drew 2 daggers and rushed towards Jerry quickly. All petrified. After landing, Jerry didn't waste any words, raised his hand and cast a full-body binding spell, and threw it at the strong man in a suit who was rushing towards him with a dagger. Usually when fighting, unless you want to put pressure on the opponent, it is best not to talk too much nonsense, such as who are you, why did you kill me, etc. There will be no answer at all, it will only waste time and miss the best attack and opportunities to escape. So, it's over, and after you catch the other party, you will naturally have a lot of time to ask the ins and outs. As for why you keep using the whole body binding spell to attack? Because facing ordinary people, spells such as the body binding curse and the sleeping curse are the best to use, and they are also the best and most proficient that he uses now, so unless there are special circumstances, he is used to using these 2 spells first to fight. Although now he has also learned some more powerful black magic, but black magic is generally more lethal, and it is not easy to control, and it is easy to kill ordinary people in one fell swoop. This type of black magic can be used secretly, but it can be used openly, and some of it doesn't fit his superhero personality. However, if it is a very dangerous situation, that is another story. From his point of view, the current situation was actually not that dangerous. The other party didn't even know how many abilities the wizard they met had that could easily kill them. Hey, so fast! Seeing that the burly man in the suit flashed his figure and easily dodged his magic, Jerry couldn't help showing a surprised look on his face. If the opponent's dodge just now had only predicted the casting action of his wand, he wouldn't necessarily be so surprised. Because under normal circumstances, shooting a spell with a wand and shooting a bullet with a pistol are actually similar. As long as you have rich combat experience, you may not be able to avoid it in advance through predictive actions. However, the speed of the dodging action of the strong man in the suit just now was a bit too fast, obviously not the speed that a normal person should have. In this world, you are not the only one who is special, go to hell. The burly man in the suit sneered, and after a few big strides, he crossed a distance of more than 10 meters and rushed in front of Jerry. At the same time, the thin young man who was hiding behind the water tank just leaned out half of his body, raised his hand and shot Jerry in the head twice. Obviously, through the series of observations just now, the strong man in the suit has a certain understanding of Jerry's ability, and has formulated a highly targeted combat plan. At this time, if Jerry uses magic to attack the strong man in the suit, then he will face the end of being shot in the head with 2 guns, because his wizard robe cannot protect his head. If he turns on the second mode and uses his wand to open the translucent protection on the entire surface, then of course the bullets will not be able to hit him, but he will also lose the chance to attack the strong man in the suit because he has to maintain the translucent protection. In this way, a strong man in a suit who is faster than ordinary people can quickly go around behind him and cut off his head with a dagger. Hehe, let's see what you can do. Glancing at the burly man in a suit holding a dagger with a stern smile on his face, and the thin young man over there who had already raised his hand to aim at him about to shoot, Jerry also understood the plan of the other party, and squatted down directly, and Jin Chan shrank back from his shell. In wizard robes. Although Hermione's body was much weaker than his own, it was thinner and could easily be tucked into the loose wizard robes. The bullets crackled and hit the wizard's robe, and all the iron armor curses on the wizard's robe were blocked. Arrows never fail. After retracting into the wizard's robe, Jerry pointed his wand upwards, and then cast an arrow spell. Immediately, 7 or 8 black iron arrows appeared out of thin air on his magic wand, and shot at the strong man in suit who jumped up and was about to insert a dagger through the gap above the wizard's robe. The powerful iron arrow was so fast that the arms of the strong man in the suit turned into a windmill, and he managed to block all the iron arrows. However, just as he landed, he let out a scream of awe. Because at some point, a black poisonous snake with a body length of 2 meters appeared at his feet and bit his ankle. The dagger in his hand landed on the poisonous snake with all his strength, and after pinning it to death, the burly man in the suit felt dizzy as soon as he stood up, and almost staggered and fell to the ground. Apparently, he was poisoned. It turned out that after casting the arrow curse just now, Jerry stretched out his wand from the wizard robe very insidiously, and cast a Slytherin wizard's favorite snake summoning spell. The snake summoning spell, an extended variant of the transformation spell, can conjure a snake out of thin air to attack the opponent. And what Jerry conjures is the famous African death, known for its speed and toxicity, Black Mamba. End of this chapter. Chapter 97, A Wizard's Means You Can't Imagine, Part 2. Although the wizards in Harry Potter don't seem too powerful, that's mainly because the 2 sides in the battle are wizards. And many spells have counterspells and can be broken. If you think about it carefully, you will find that many spells that are nothing to wizards are extremely deadly to ordinary people or people who don't know how to spell them. In particular, the spells of wizards are endless. As long as you study and specialize, you can learn and create countless spells with different functions. If you don't know the profession of wizards, it will be very uncomfortable to fight with a wizard. You will never know how many strange abilities he has mastered. Some superpowers may breathe fire, teleport, or become invisible, but they all have only one ability, but every spell of a wizard can be regarded as a kind of superpower. Fire breathing, fiery curse, an upgraded version of the flame curse, Vulcan clears the way. Invisibility, phantom curse. Teleportation, shape-shifting. Flying, the flying spell invented by Voldemort. Mind control, imperious curse, etc. Too much. Any superpower you can imagine, as long as the knowledge of magic is strong enough, it seems that it can be created by development. Perhaps the only flaw of the wizard is that due to his own bloodline, he is unable to cast that kind of super magic that will destroy the world. But in terms of comprehensive ability, Jerry's current wizard should be regarded as the most versatile player among all superheroes in the entire Marvel world. And when the second small world is opened in the future, maybe he can learn more new magic, more lethal magic, his potential is limitless. The body is good and numb, and I can resist it. Looking through the gap in the wizard's robe, looking at the burly man in a suit who was bitten by the black mamba snake and managed to get up and move towards him, and wanted to attack him, Jerry raised his hand, oolong out of the hole. Oolong out of the hole. 2 black mamba snakes appeared in a row, one rushed towards the strong man in a suit, and the other rushed towards the thin young man who was still suppressing Jerry with a pistol. If it weren't for Jerry's current level, it would be difficult to control too many snakes. He could even use a snake summoning spell to conjure up an army of poisonous snakes. Seeing 2 more black mamba snakes appear, the face of the burly man in the suit suddenly turned green. When he was young, he participated in the Siberia training camp and received an injection of an experimental genetic drug. His body was stronger than normal people, and his ability to resist poison was also stronger. But he can still resist the venom of 1 black mamba, and if it is 2, he probably won't be able to last long. If there are 3, it is definitely a dead end. Kill the snake first. The burly man in the suit hurriedly backed away, while yelling at the thin young man who was still shooting at Jerry. At this time, the thin young man also noticed something was wrong, and quickly aimed at the black mamba rushing towards him. Although the thin young man is mainly responsible for the team's network, his shooting ability is also very strong, otherwise he would not be able to hit Jerry's wizard robe at such a long distance. However, the black mamba is not only famous for its toxicity, but also its speed is quite fast. At a speed of 19 km per hour, it can jump a distance of 5 meters in 1 second, and it is crawling on the ground. How can it be so fast? Easily hit by bullets. Ah! With a scream, the thin young man was directly bitten on the calf by the black mamba snake. The thin young man was not as strong as the strong man in the suit, and he foamed at the mouth and fell to the ground not long after. It is estimated that if there is no medical treatment, he should be buried within a few minutes. Stretching out his head from the wizard robe, Jerry pulled his fluffy hair, and slowly walked towards the burly man in a suit surrounded by 2 black mamba snakes with his wand. Hey, brother, why don't you move, go on. Holding his wand, Jerry walked unhurriedly in front of the strong man in a suit who didn't dare to move. Don't dare to move, don't dare to move. This burly man in a suit is obviously also a person who can bend and stretch. At this moment, there is no possibility of turning the tables. On his big stiff face, he tried his best to squeeze out a little smile. Now I can only hope that this little girl's heart can be as cute and kind as her appearance. Damned. Without talking nonsense with the strong man in the suit, Jerry directly stunned him with a sleeping spell, and then threw him into the box space. Coming to the emaciated young man, he took out a bottle of antidote that he had made before, which temporarily saved him from the tragic fate of being poisoned to death, and a sleeping spell also threw it into the box space. Next, he cast a sleeping spell on the immobilized red-haired woman and the bazooka-resistant brawny man, and then threw all their equipment into the box space. After looking around, there was nothing missing, so he used the summoning spell to summon the broomstick, and rode away from Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen, the basement of the building where Jerry fought just now. A super fat man with a height of nearly 2 meters, oh, maybe he should not be called a big fat man, because although he is fat, it can be seen from his naked upper body that his body is full of well-organized muscle lines. In other words, this fat man with a bald head is actually a super strong man with muscles piled up. At this time, he was surrounded by more than 20 strong men. Although these strong men were not as perverted as the bald and strong ones, they all looked extraordinary. The key point is that it can be seen from the attacking postures of these people that these 24 strong men should all be masters in fighting. Go together. The bald head waved his hand indifferently, and the 20 or so strong men immediately and mercilessly used various means to attack the vital parts of the bald head's body. Facing the attacks of more than 20 masters, the bald head didn't care, only to see that although his body was huge, his movements were not slow at all, and his strength was surprisingly great. Anyone he hit would lose their combat effectiveness almost immediately, and those who attacked him, as long as they missed the vital points and hit other parts of his body, they would not be able to affect him at all. Soon, the bald head knocked down more than 20 strong men to the ground, then calmly put on the custom-made oversized suit and left the basement. This bald head is none other than Jin Bing, the leader of New York or the underground kingdom of Country M. On the surface, he is also a super big businessman in New York, and has inextricable relationships with many high-ranking government officials and politicians. What's more, he himself is a top fighting master, and he conducts fighting training with more than 20 fighting masters from all over the world every day. Usually, he can beat all these masters to the ground in less than 20 seconds. Taking the elevator from the basement to his office on the top floor, Jin asked the secretary next to him, "What's going on? Is the battle on the top floor over?" End of this chapter. Chapter 98 Interrogation, Third Shift. Like Jin Bin, this secretary also has a bald head, but standing next to Jin Bin, his figure is no different from a small bean sprout. After adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses, the bald secretary handed something similar to an iPad to Jin Bin, and respectfully reported, "Boss, this is the video taken by the monitor on the top floor. Those mercenary missions failed, and they seem to have been taken away by that little wizard." Jin pinched the iPad with his thick fingers, watching the video played on it, which was the whole process of Jerry fighting with the 4 mercenaries. The top 10 mercenary squads in the world all failed and were arrested. The strength shown by this little wizard is indeed not easy to deal with. "Boss, why don't we do it ourselves, gather our hands and use a lot of heavy weapons to kill him directly?" the bald secretary suggested. Jin waved his hand, "Don't force yourself, the feeling this little wizard gives me is not as simple as she looks on the surface." As a man who built the entire Dark Empire single-handedly, Jin Bing not only has full-scale military strength, but also far surpasses ordinary people in brain power. Compared with charging into battle, he prefers to hide in the dark to manipulate everything. Before he fully understands all the abilities of this little wizard, he will not personally send someone to take action. "But boss, if she comes over every night, many of our businesses will be affected." At this time, the bald secretary couldn't help laughing bitterly. During this month, thanks to this little wizard, all of their face-to-face transactions were robbed, and their human trafficking transactions were also depraved several times. Although after their people were captured by the police who were notified, they had some ways to get out again, but this is not the way to go on like this. Jin Bing thought for a while, and then ordered, "You inform me that all the next large transactions will be arranged in areas other than Hell's Kitchen. Also, the trading time should be during the day, not at night." According to the wizard's rules of action, he basically came out to Hell's Kitchen to fight criminals after midnight, so avoiding this time would temporarily solve the problem. However, this is of course not a long-term solution, so Jin Bing continued, "Now her appearance is not exposed, let everyone below move, I want to know the identity of this Miss Wizard in reality, and all her information. This kind of person who likes to be a superhero, no matter how powerful he is, has the same weakness, let alone she is only a child, find her family and friends. Then, you know what to do?" "Yes, boss, I understand." The bald secretary's eyes lit up after hearing this, and he immediately understood what Jin Bin meant. Although the little wizard is powerful, it is impossible for her relatives and friends around her to be all powerful. As long as she catches her relatives and friends, it will be much easier to kill her. Squeak! Opening the window, Jerry jumped into the room, and lifted the disillusionment spell, revealing his figure. "It's almost 4 o'clock, it looks like I'm going to stay up late tonight." He looked at the time, shook his head, took out the box and opened it on the ground. He stretched his feet and stepped on the escalator step by step to the inside of the box space. No way, the time for polyjuice potion wasn't over yet, his body was still Hermione's body, so be careful. To the bottom of the box, the 4 bodies were lying on the ground in a coma, and it was the assassination group that Jerry had just thrown in after being unconscious with the sleeping spell. Quick imprisonment. The wand waved 4 times, and 4 ropes flew out of the wand, binding all 4 people in a coma on the ground tightly. The rope curse, the extended spell of the transformation curse, is a binding spell invented by wizards to deal with magical animals with relatively high magic resistance. In the wizarding world, many magical animals have high magic resistance, such as the body binding spell and sleeping spell, and sometimes it is not very easy to deal with them. And this rope curse, as long as the opponent's strength is not particularly strong, it is basically difficult to break free, such as the centaur. Another advantage of the rope curse is that it restrains the enemy and at the same time does not make the enemy speechless. It is very suitable for use during torture. Just after Jerry released the 4 rope spells, a strange feeling suddenly came out of his body, and then he found that his body had changed again, and his familiar body finally returned. It turned out that it was the effect of the compound decoction for an hour, and it was over, and his body returned to its original appearance again. You're still in good health. Touching the lost 8-pack ABS, Jerry couldn't help showing a smile on his face. Hermione's flat stomach could not replace the ABS he had worked out with great difficulty, and Hermione's body was really too weak, which made him feel very uncomfortable in all aspects. Quick recovery. The wand waved 4 times in a row, 4 recovery spells were thrown, and the 4 people who were bound by the rope slowly opened their eyes. The strong man in the suit was not dead because of the snake venom on his body, but his body was still in a weak state. The first reaction after waking up was to look around vigilantly. When he saw Jerry, he couldn't help showing a puzzled look on his face. Expression. As for the other 3, the thin young man didn't move at all, and the red-haired woman looked around vigilantly. Only the strong man who resisted the bazooka, although his body was tied up by the rope, still resolutely jumped at the first moment. Bounced towards Jerry. Fuchsia. Jerry unhurriedly pointed at the strong man carrying the bazooka, and the strong man was immediately hung upside down in midair by an invisible force. No matter how much he struggled, it would be of no avail. And this scene also caused the pupils of the remaining 3 people to shrink immediately. This means that the boy in front of him who is dressed the same as the little girl before is also a wizard with magical abilities. A little girl has already wiped out the 4 of them, and with the addition of a little boy with the same ability, the possibility of them trying to escape is estimated to be very slim. I asked, you said, if you dare to lie to me, I will kill you immediately. Jerry's face was cold. However, seeing Jerry's appearance, the burly man in the suit said okay on the surface, but rolled his eyes. Facing the threat of an 11-year-old child, it is really difficult for them to feel scared. What they are thinking now is how to deceive this child with sweet words. Why do you want to kill the wizard, who sent you here? Seeing the expressions of several people, Jerry frowned, but still asked sharply. My little friend, in fact, we are all good people, and we were forced to do nothing. That lady wizard came out every night to fight against criminals. Of course, the ruthless criminal accomplices wanted revenge. It was none of our business, but they kidnapped us. Family, so. The strong man in the suit was about to burst into tears as he spoke. And the woman in red started to cry. She looked like a weak woman, completely lacking the ferocious appearance of shooting her head with a sniper rifle. End of this chapter. Chapter 99 Restrictions of the Imperious Curse. 4th update. Seeing that the thin young man over there also started to sob, although there were no tears, Jerry couldn't help twitching the corners of his mouth. When I faced a little girl on the top of the building just now, she had a fierce face and showed no mercy. Now you tell us that you were forced, and you really deceived me like a child. I think you don't cry until you see the coffin. Picking up the wand, Jerry stopped wasting time and went directly to the thin young man who was the best to deal with. The soul is out of the body. In just a few seconds, under the effect of the Imperious Curse, the thin young man turned into a blissful idiot. Say, who are you and why did you kill the wizard? The thin young man immediately opened his mouth cheerfully. We are the Red Dragonfly Mercenary Squad, one of the top 10 strongest mercenary squads in the world. We accept various assassination missions around the world all year round. A week ago, the captain saw the mission of assassinating wizards on the dark web, and the reward given gold is very high, so I took it. Red Dragonfly Squad, mercenaries, Darknet, do you know who hired you? Jerry frowned. I don't know, you have to ask the captain. The thin young man happily replied. Seeing that the thin young man didn't know, Jerry withdrew his wand and turned to look at the burly man in a suit. At this point, the strong man in the suit is already stupid. Can this still be like this? As a mercenary with rich experience and countless murders, with the will of a strong man in a suit, the Jedi is much stronger than ordinary people, but when he saw the effect of Jerry's Imperious Curse, his pupil shrank. Who is it? Jerry walked over. The strong man in the suit immediately put a smile on his face. This little gentleman, I really don't know who it is, and the other party is also anonymous, but I guess, there is a high probability that it should be Jin Bing. More than half of the crimes in the entire underground kitchen are related to him. You fight criminals here every day. The one who has lost the most is him. No one wants to be controlled in their minds, and the same is true for the burly man in a suit, so he spoke out all the information he knew and guessed very quickly. However, Jerry didn't let him go. To be on the safe side, he cast an Imperious Curse on him. However, what Jerry didn't expect was that the Imperious Curse he released only controlled the strong man in the suit for less than 10 seconds before he forcibly broke free. It turns out that as long as the will is strong enough, you can really resist the control of the Imperious Curse. Looking at the burly man in a suit back to normal, Jerry remembered the record about the Imperious Curse in Quirrell's notes. Although the Imperious Curse, as the 3 unforgivable curses, can play a role in controlling the mind of the caster, it is not absolute. If the controlled party's will is strong enough, then even if the Imperious Curse is successfully released, it is very likely to be freed again, and if the Imperious Curse is released on the same person multiple times, resistance will also develop, resulting in failure. Also, if the Imperious Curse was 100% successful, the Death Eaters would not have been using the Cruciatus Curse to torture Neville's parents during the First Wizarding War. The strong man in the suit in front of him, although he doesn't seem to be very powerful now, can be the captain of the top 10 strongest mercenary teams in the world. At the same time, he once stayed in the Siberia training camp, received experiments on genetic medicine, and his hands were covered with blood. How could such a person have weak willpower? That's why Jerry's Imperious Curse failed for a few seconds before failing. However, he didn't pay too much attention to this. As a superhero, it's normal for him to be targeted when he goes out to fight criminals every day. As for the mastermind behind the scenes, he is actually not very interested. If it is really the underground forces in Hell's Kitchen, he will not really come to the door to kill them all. It's not because of how kind-hearted he is, who has his own special ideas like Spider-Man or Batman. It's just that it's not really beneficial for him to do that. Not to mention that these ground organizations are intricate and even have great ties to government officials on the surface. It is simply unrealistic to try to solve them all. Even if everything is really cleared away, in such an environment, new organizations of the same kind will emerge. This world is not black and white. If you want to be completely bright without a trace of darkness, unless all human beings are extinct. The most important thing, from the perspective of self-interest, he really turned Hell's Kitchen into a place without criminals, so what about his little red star? Although he won't take the initiative to do bad things, he still has to earn little red star, because that's the foundation of his strength. It's really too serious, and the result may be to fish in a dry marsh, and there is no way to develop sustainably. As for the failure of this assassination, what if they retaliate in the future? Then come on, anyway, from now on, everyone will think that Jerry is a little girl, no one will be able to find out his true identity, and it will not bring any danger to Haas and Aisha. They can only focus on attacking Jerry himself. With the improvement of Jerry's strength, he will only become more and more calm in dealing with this kind of attack from the underground organization of ordinary people. The golden bell hits the ground. Legs stand still. Put down the strong man carrying the rocket, and then use the leg-locking spell to bind the legs of the 4 people to prevent them from running around in the box space, although they can't run out either. Jerry walked out of the box along the escalator, pulled a network cable from his room to the lawn below, and then took out a laptop computer he bought privately from the small villa in the space box, plugged in the network cable and stood together again. In front of. Regardless of the 4 people still begging for sympathy, Jerry used the Imperious Curse to control the thin young man. Then, from the mouth of the thin and weak young man, he asked the password of all the accounts of the weak and weak young man, and donated all the huge amount of property in it to a website account called Save the Children Foundation through the notebook. Not bad, there is a little red star in the account. Seeing that although there are not many red stars on the panel, there are still many little red stars in the account, Jerry nodded in satisfaction. It is really strange that there are no little red stars when he donates with his own money, but there are little red stars when he forcibly uses the money of these mercenaries to donate. Withdrawing the Imperious Curse, and regardless of the ashen-faced thin young man, Jerry walked towards the bazooka-carrying burly man again. For mercenaries, money is the most important thing. They do such dangerous work, hovering on the edge of life and death every day, not only for money, but now Jerry wants to take all their money. How can they be willing? However, if you don't want to, you can't. The strong man carrying the rocket launcher is obviously not as strong-willed as the strong man in the suit leading them. He quickly succumbed to the control of the Imperious Curse, and honestly handed over all his accounts and secrets to him. Out. End of this chapter. Chapter 100 The First Time of the Killing Curse, Part 1, Passing over the strong man carrying the rocket, Jerry came to the leader of the hired team. I understand. At this time, people are swords and I am fish. Of course, the strong man in a suit knows that he cannot fight this wizard who also knows magic. Simply, the opponent's magic of controlling people doesn't work on him, so he can keep 1 or 2 of the most important accounts, and take out a few accounts that are not very important to fool around first. As the captain, his savings are much more than those of his companions, but even if he takes out a part of it, it is almost the same as the entire assets of his companions just now. Should be able to fool the child in front of him. A few minutes later, Jerry stared at the strong man in the suit and asked lightly, "Is there any more?" The strong man in the suit immediately laughed along with him, "Little mister, it's gone, it's gone, this time we really realized our mistakes, and we must reform ourselves in the future, be a good person, and stop killing people." Not killing people? Jerry didn't believe it at all. This time he drained all their savings. If he let them go, the other party would go even crazier to pick up missions on the dark web to earn money. "But I can't believe you're gone." Jerry looked at the strong man in the suit with a smile. The strong man in the suit was taken aback for a moment, and then a very bad feeling suddenly came to his heart. "Let's verify it." I saw that Jerry raised his wand and pointed it at the strong man in the suit, whisper. Because of the network cable, the cover on the top of the box was not completely closed at this time. He worried that the captain would wake up Haas and Aisha if he yelled too loudly, so he cast a whispering spell on him first. After releasing the whispering spell, Jerry raised his wand again, "Cruciate." What? The facial expression of the burly man in the suit was distorted in an instant, a pain that had never been seen before, as if it came from the soul, hit him instantly, and in just a few seconds, he felt like he was about to collapse. This pain was 100 times more painful than when he was experimenting with genetic enhancement drugs in the Siberia training camp back then. His mouth began to emit a scream full of fear, but after the sound came out, it was like a whisper, and the whole appearance looked very strange. Seeing this, the other three people couldn't help shaking their bodies. Originally, although they were caught, they never worried about being killed. At most, they thought they would be sent to prison, so they were not particularly afraid in their hearts. Because, when they took this task, they had a judgment on the wizard. This is a very righteous child. In all recorded actions, he has never shot anyone. So, even in the worst case scenario, they failed to kill the wizard and were caught by the wizard. At most, they were handed over to the police and sent to prison like other criminals. And prisons can't hold people like them, and it's not too difficult for them to escape from prison. This is also the real reason why they still chose to take this order after learning about the wizard's various strange abilities. And according to their original plan and the analysis of the wizard's previous ability, they are 70% sure that they can kill the wizard and get a good reward. But now it seems that the little wizard girl is indeed a good person, but this little boy who also knows magic doesn't seem to be a good person. Any left? Stopping to cast the Cruciatus curse, Jerry asked the burly man in the suit again. "It's really gone." The burly man in the suit gritted his teeth. He expected that the other party would not keep torturing him like this. As long as he did not let go, the other party would let him go, so that when he escaped from prison, at least he would not have nothing. "Cruciate." Jerry continued to raise his wand. The brawny man in the suit made a mistake, that is, Jerry didn't intend to spare a few people and give them to the police. How could it be possible? For these few people who came here specifically to assassinate him, for these few people who can even kill a little girl with heart, how could Jerry let them go? Maybe they all have a tragic past of their own, maybe they plan to earn enough money to retire to a quiet life, maybe they didn't get into this business of their own volition. But none of this has anything to do with Jerry. From when they assassinated themselves to now when Jerry appeared in front of them with his real face, none of them were destined to survive. Now it is just to squeeze out all their savings and donate them to the Save the Children Foundation to earn more little red stars. Cruciate. 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 After a few rounds, no matter how strong the will of the suit is, he couldn't take it anymore, and finally opened his mouth and confessed all his account numbers and passwords. Cruciate. I have already explained everything, there is really nothing left, nothing left. At this time, the strong man in the suit had tears and snot coming out, obviously he had reached his limit. Since you deceived me just now, I still don't believe you, let's do a few more rounds. Jerry shrugged and gave the burly man a few more rounds of the Cruciatus curse. Finally, when he saw that the strong man in the suit was starting to look a little silly, he stopped and shook his head. Be honest, there won't be so many things. After dealing with the strong man in the suit, Jerry came to the last red-haired woman. The red-haired woman's complexion changed, and she immediately said, I confess everything, there will be absolutely no concealment, please don't use that on me. Jerry nodded, he also didn't use the imperious curse on the red-haired woman, because he felt that after what happened just now, the red-haired woman must not dare to hide anything anymore. A few rounds later, when Jerry donated all the red-haired woman's funds to save the children, he slowly closed the computer. "It's time to send you on your way." As if aware of something, the red-headed woman suddenly pushed her chest out vigorously, fully revealing her attractive figure, which was made more prominent by the rope binding, in front of Jerry's eyes. "Little mister, just let us go, we really don't dare to do it next time, if you want. In fact, my sister can even stay and serve you for a while, and let you taste the happiness that you have never experienced before." After finishing speaking, she stuck out her tongue and licked her delicate red lips, her eyes full of charm. 11 or 12-year-old boys have already begun to be a little ignorant and impulsive, as long as the little boy in front of him thinks a little carefully and loosens the shackles on her. Then, she has the confidence to kill this little boy when she is close to her body. Jerry looked at the red-haired woman with a hot figure and a beautiful face in front of him, and slowly raised the wand in his hand, Avada Kedavra. A green light shot out from the wand, hitting the red-haired woman precisely. In an instant, the pupils of the red-haired woman dilated, and her heart stopped suddenly, as if her soul was instantly driven out of her body, without the breath of life. Humph, what a beast, he doesn't even let children go. Facing a woman who likes to shoot herself headshot with a sniper rifle, how could Jerry have any other thoughts? End of this chapter. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.